Hello everybody. Hello, hi Greg. Welcome. I had earlier I had come on. Hello, welcome. And we had been going through the Georgia phone call. I thought I've been looking through the evidence again, and I thought, why not go through the phone call again and talk about the different pieces of evidence as they come out. So I thought that might be kind of fun. Oh, hello from Florida. Welcome. Hello. Yes, welcome. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, I'm doing quite well. Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome. Something just a little bit different tonight. I did want to kind of go through this phone call. I had discussed this earlier, but I think it's so important. I wanted to kind of talk about it again as we walk through this case. Yes, it is quite the week. Hello, welcome. So I hope you will all bear with me here, but I have the phone call, the Georgia phone call, and this is all public information, public knowledge, and I wanted to take some time and go through the language that is actually used here and pull the evidence out in this phone call. So I thought that would be a good way to really just look exactly at the evidence that is being specifically stated. So hopefully I'll be able to get the audio up and going, but I do have the Washington, D.C. indictment here, along with the Georgia indictment, and the language set out within these two indictments that covers a lot of what's been going on in this phone call. Hello, from Missouri, Illinois. Excellent. Welcome. Yes, I've got a little bit of time. I really wanted to go through. Yes, I wanted to share with everyone this evidence from the point of view of defense counsel as well as from a prosecutor's point of view. So let me go ahead and get started. Again, I will be setting out the different pieces of evidence that are directly coming from this phone call specifically. So let's get started. Hello, welcome. New York City. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining tonight. Let me go ahead, and I know the glare's not the best. I just wanted to show you that what my source was here, but I'm going to kind of pull this up off the screen a little bit so I've got room to write. Hello, hi. Yes, so let me go ahead and get started here, and let me know if you can hear everything okay. I think I've got it set up to an appropriate volume for everyone. All right. Yay. Welcome everyone. Here we go. Let's get started. Again, this is the phone call that was made to the Secretary of State in Georgia. And in particular, again, going through this particular portion of the DC indictment, all of this information. So I'll be pointing that out as we go through the phone call here, and then along with Georgia as well. So yes, Jilly Bean, I'm going to be kind of going through this phone call. It's not actually that long of a phone call, but I want to pull the evidence out here specific to when he's saying the words that are used as evidence here. All right, here we go. Yep, and we'll hear it 1,000 more. This is all public. Yep, this is all public information. All public. So here we go. And again, I will be kind of stopping and starting to pull out different pieces of evidence as we go through this. So let's get going.
On the line, and just so, this is Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff, just so we all are aware.
Hold on here. Let me make sure I get the volume going. One more time, everybody.
On the line is Secretary of State and two other individuals.
Can we hear okay, everyone?
Mr. Germany. With him, you also have the attorneys that represent the President, Kurt and Alex, and Cleta Mitchell, who is not the attorney of record but has been involved, myself, and then the President. So, Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Brad and Ryan and everybody. We appreciate the time and the call. So we've spent a lot of time on this, and if we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia. You even see it by rally size, frankly. We'd be getting 25, 30,000.
All right, let's just get started. I will be putting down the statements that are false. That's what I will be pulling out here. So, first statement. We've already got... I'm going to... The call actually goes pretty fast here, but I think it's important to go through it. It's got a lot of interesting bits and pieces.
People to rally, and the competition would get less than 100 people, and it never made sense. But we have a number of things. We have at least two or three, anywhere from 250 to 300,000 ballots were dropped mysteriously into the rolls. Much of that had to do with Fulton County, which hasn't been checked. We think that if you check the signatures, a real check of the signatures going back in Fulton County, you'll find at least a couple of 100,000 of forged signatures of people with who have been forged, and we are quite sure that's going to happen. Another tremendous number. We're going to have an accurate number over the next 2 days with certified accountants, but an accurate number will be given, but it's in the 50s of thousands, and that's people that went to vote and they were told they can't vote because they've already been voted for.
Okay, 50s of thousands told can't vote, already been voted for. Just making sure I got the 50s of thousands here. Voted for. Okay, here we go. 50s of thousands.
And it's a very sad thing. They walked out complaining, but the number is large. We'll have it for you, but it's much more than the number of 11,779. That's the current margin is only 11,779. Brad, I think you agree with that, right? That's something I think everyone, at least that's the number that everyone agrees on. But that's the difference in the votes. But we've had hundreds of thousands of ballots that we're able to actually. We'll get you a pretty accurate number. You don't need much of a number because the number that, in theory, I lost by the margin would be 11,779. But you also have substantial numbers of people, thousands and thousands, who went to the voting place on November 3rd, were told they couldn't vote. Were told they couldn't vote because a ballot had been put in on their name. And, that's very, 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 very sad. We had, I believe it's about 4,502 voters who voted, but who weren't on the voter registration list. So it's 4,502 who voted, but they were not on the voter registration roll, which they had to be. You had 18,325 vacant address voters. The address was vacant, and they're not allowed to be counted. That's 18,325. Smaller number, you had 904 who only voted where they had just a PO, a post office box number. And they had a post office box number, and that's not allowed. We had at least 18,000 that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly. 18,000 voters having to do with... she's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer and hustler.
I don't want to put hustler.
That was the tape that's been shown all over the world that makes everybody look bad. You, me, and everybody else. Where they got number one, they said very clearly, and it's been reported that they said there was a major water main break. Everybody fled the area, and then they came back. Her daughter and a few people. There was no Republican poll watchers. Actually, there were no Democrat poll watchers. I guess they were them. But there were no Democrats either, and there was no law enforcement. Late in the morning, early in the morning, they went to the table with the black robe, the black shield, and they pulled out the votes. Those votes were put there a number of hours before the table was put there. I think.
Hold on. Just a minute. Let's flip. All right, hold on. We're getting there. All right, number 17. Black robes were involved. Black robes and tables were involved. Tables. Okay. All right, here we go. Black robes and tables. Let's keep going. Whew.
Brad, you would know, it was probably 8 hours or 7 hours before, and then it was stuffed with votes. They weren't in an official voter box. They were in what looked to be suitcases or trunks, suitcases, but they weren't in voter boxes. The minimum number it could be, because we watched it, and they watched it certified in slow motion, instant replay, if you can believe it, but they had slow motion, and it was magnified many times over. And the minimum it was 18,000 ballots, all for Biden. You had out-of-state voters. They voted in Georgia, but they were from out of state, of 4,925. You had absentee ballots sent to vacant. They were absentee ballots sent to vacant addresses. They had nothing on them about addresses. That's 2,326. And you had drop boxes, which was very bad. You had drop boxes that were picked up. We have photographs, and we have affidavits from many people. I don't know if you saw the hearings, but you have drop boxes where the box was picked up and not delivered for 3 days. So all sorts of things could have happened to that box, including, putting in the votes that you wanted. So there are many infractions, and the bottom line, it's many, many times the 11,779 margin that they said we lost by. We had the state is in turmoil over this, and I know you would like to get to the bottom of it, although I saw you on television today and you said that you found nothing wrong. I didn't lose the state, Brett. People have been saying that it was the highest vote ever. There was no way. A lot of the political people said that there's no way they beat me, and they beat me. They beat me in the poll. As you know, every single state, we won every state. We won every state house in the country. We held the Senate, which is shocking to people, although we'll see.
All right. Won every state. Won Senate. Shocking. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Let's flip the page. Oh my gosh. All right, here we go.
Happens tomorrow or in a few days. And we won the House, but we won every single state house, and we won Congress, which was supposed to lose 15 seats, and they gained, I think, 16 or 17 or something. I think there's now a difference of 5. There was supposed to be a difference substantially more. But politicians in every state, but politicians in Georgia have given affidavits and are going to that there was no way they beat me in the election. That the people came out. In fact, they were expecting to lose, and they ended up winning by a lot because of the coattails. And they said there's no way that they've done many polls prior to the election. There was no way that they won. Ballots were dropped in massive numbers, and we're trying to get to those numbers, and we will.
Hold on. Okay, no way. Coattails. Ballots dropped. Okay, here we go.
They'll take a period of time, certified, but they're massive numbers and far greater than the 11,779. The other thing, dead people. So dead people voted, and I think the number is in the close to 5,000 people. and they went to obituaries, they went to all sorts of methods to come up with an accurate number, and a minimum is close to about 5,000 voters. The bottom line is when you add it all up, and then you start adding, 300,000 fake ballots, then the other thing they said is in Fulton County and other areas, and this may or may not be true, this just came up this morning, that they are burning their ballots, that they are shredding ballots and removing equipment. They're changing the equipment on the Dominion machines, and then that's not legal. And they supposedly shredded, I think they said 3,000 pounds of ballots, and that just came to us as a report today. And it's a very sad situation. But Brad, if you took the minimum numbers, were many times above the 11,779, and many of those numbers are certified, or they will be certified, but they are certified. Those are numbers that are there, that exist, and that beat the margin of loss. They beat it, by a lot. And people should be happy to have an accurate count instead of an election where there's turmoil. There's turmoil in Georgia and other places. You're not the only one. We have other states that I believe will be flipping to us very shortly. And but this is something that's as an example. I think in Detroit, and I think there's a good section of your state actually, which we're not sure, so we're not going to report it yet. But in Detroit, we had 100. I think it was 139% of the people voted. That's not too good. In Pennsylvania, they had well over 200,000 more votes than they had people voting, and that doesn't play too well. And the legislature there which is Republican, is extremely activist and angry. But there were other things also that were almost as bad as that. But they had, as an example, in Michigan, a tremendous number of dead people that voted. I think Mark, it was 18,000. Some unbelievably high number, much higher than yours. You were in the 4,000 to 5,000 category, and that was checked out laboriously by going through the obituary columns in the newspapers. So I guess with all of it being said, Brett, it's the bottom line. And provisional ballots, again, you'll have to tell me about the provisional ballots, but we have a lot of people that were complaining that they weren't able to vote because they were already voted for. And these are great people. And, they were shell-shocked. I don't know if you call that provisional ballots. In some states, we had a lot of provisional ballot situations where people were given a provisional ballot because when they walked in on November 3rd, they were already voted for. So that's it. We have many times the number of votes necessary to win the state, and we won the state, and we won it very substantially and easily, and we have much of this is they're certified. Far more is certified than we need, but we're getting additional numbers certified too, and we're getting pictures of drop boxes being delivered and delivered late, and delivered 3 days later in some cases. Plus, we have many affidavits to that effect.
So, Mr. President, if I might be able to jump in, and I'll give Brad a chance.
Hold on. Many boxes. Many pictures of boxes. Many boxes. Okay. Let me just make sure. Whoo! Sir, this is a Wendy's. All right. Let's keep in mind, this is Mr. Trump talking here, but we will have Mr. Meadows coming in here in a minute. And we're talking with the Secretary of State in Georgia. So we're just kind of keeping a track here of the information that he's stating that has been shown to be incorrect. So We're at number 62. Let's go ahead and flip over and see. I'm trying to make sure that we stay in frame here. So you can see my citation for the recording. Many affidavits. Yes, many. This was a phone call. Yes, it was. Yes. So I'm trying to show you here the timestamps. So for anyone who is interested. Yes, here we go. I think we've got Mr. Meadows coming up next.
Mr. Secretary, obviously there are allegations where we believe that not every vote or fair vote and legal vote was counted, and that's at odds with the representation from the Secretary of State's office. What I'm hopeful for is there some way that we can find some kind of an agreement to look at this a little bit more fully. The president mentioned Fulton County, but in some of these areas where there seems to be a difference of where the facts seem to lead. And so, Mr. Secretary, I was hopeful that, in a spirit of cooperation and compromises, there's something that we can at least have a discussion to look at some of these allegations to find a path forward that's less litigious.
Well, I've listened to what the president has just said. President Trump,
the Secretary of State,
lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have one. I didn't agree about the 200,000 number that you mentioned, and I could go through that point by point. What we had done is we gave our state senate about 1.5 hours of our time going through the election issue by issue, and then on the state house, the Government Affairs Committee, we gave them about 2.5 hours of our time, going back point by point on all the issues of contention. And then just a few days ago, we met with our U.S. congressman, Republican congressman, and we gave them about 2 hours of our time talking about this past election. Going back, primarily what you've talked about, you focused in on primarily, I believe, is the absentee ballot process. I don't believe that you're really questioning the Dominion machines, because we did a hand retally, a 100% retally of all the ballots, and compared that to what the machine said, and it came up with virtually the same result. Then we did the recount, and we got virtually the same result. So I guess we could probably take that off the table. I don't think there's an issue about that. I think what you were...
Well, Brad, not that there's not an issue, but because we have a big issue with Dominion and other states, and perhaps in yours, but we haven't felt we needed to go there. And just to maybe put a little different spin on what Mark is saying, Mark Meadows, we'd like to go further, but we don't really need to. We have all the votes we need. We won the state. If you took, these are the most minimal numbers, the numbers that I gave you. Those are numbers that are certified, your absentee ballots sent to vacant addresses, your out-of-state voters, 4,925. When you add them up, it's many times the 11,779 number. So we could go through. We have not gone through your Dominion, so we can't give them blessing. I mean, in other states, we think we found tremendous corruption with Dominion machines, but we'll have to see. But we only lost the state by by that number, 11,000 votes, and 779. So with that being said, with just what we have, and with just what we have, we're giving you minimum numbers. We're doing the most conservative numbers possible. We're many times above the margin, and so we don't really have to, Mark. I don't think we have to go through
Right.
because what's the difference between winning the election by two votes and winning it by 500,000 votes? I think we probably did win it by 500,000. One of the things that happened, Brad, is we have other people coming in now from Alabama and from South Carolina and from other states, and they're saying it's impossible for you to have lost Georgia. We won, in Alabama we set a record, got the highest vote ever. In Georgia we set a record with a massive amount of votes, and they say it's not possible to have lost Georgia. And I could tell you by our rallies. I could tell you by the rally I'm having on Monday night. The place, they already have lines of people standing out front waiting. It's just not possible to have lost Georgia. It's not possible. When I heard it was close, I said, there's no way. But they dropped a lot of votes in there late at night. You know that, Brad. And that's what we are working on very, very stringently. But regardless of those votes, with all of it being said, we lost by essentially 11,000 votes, and we have many more votes already calculated and certified to. So I just don't know, Mark, I don't know what's the purpose. I won't give Dominion a pass because we found too many bad things, but we don't need Dominion or anything else. We have won this election in Georgia based on all of this, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, Brad. Having a correct. The people of Georgia are angry, and these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even. And the people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. That you've recalculated, because it's 2,236 and absentee ballots. I mean, they're all exact numbers that were done by accounting firms, law firms, etc. And even if you cut them in half, and cut them in half again, it's more votes than we need.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Okay, hold on. More votes than we need. Okay, and let's flip. I've lost track of the number. We're probably in the 90s here, so we'll just start with 90. And now the Secretary of State is saying the problem is that your data is wrong. Your numbers are wrong. Drink water. I'm not having to talk too much tonight. Boy, it's hard keeping up. 90 false statements. So what I'm just doing here to kind of keep track are the statements that have been used in the DC and Georgia indictments. These are specific statements matching the information in the indictments that I've read multiple times. All of these are statements specifically set out in those indictments. So we're getting into I lost track around 80 here. So we're at about 90. That's what I'm keeping track of here, are statements made in this phone call that have been set out as evidence in these two indictments. Maybe some wine. Yeah, at least 500,000 votes, at least 500,000 votes. I have not watched the 10,000 Mules because it's so completely false. It is one of the most interesting studies in pure propaganda that I have ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot. So no, I've not watched it all the way through. Yes, they're just saying it. I mean, I'm just putting down his words. Exactly. Okay, one moment, please. All right, let's get back into it. Again, I'm just pulling out the language that is specifically set out in the indictments. Yes, it's good for everyone to watch, to listen to it. Absolutely. How do you have this evidence? This is a recording that was made. That is public information. It's been put out into the public for anyone to listen to. I've listened to it multiple times, and I've also read the DC indictment and the Georgia indictment many, many, many times. And so now I'm kind of putting this together, taking the language that's being said and writing out the statements that are being cited in the indictments. Okay? Yep. Yes, it really is. All right, let's dive back in. Here we go. We've got some more interesting information coming in.
We talked to the congressmen, and they were surprised, but I guess there was a person named Mr. Raynard that came to these meetings and presented data. And he said that there was dead people, I believe it was upward of 5,000. The actual number were two people that were dead that voted. And so that's wrong. That was two.
Well, Cleta, how do you respond to that? I mean, you tell me.
Well, I will say, Mr. Secretary, one of the things that we have requested.
Is this Ms. Mitchell?
What we said was, and if you look at if you read our petition, it said that we took the names and birth years, and we had certain information available to us. We have asked from your office for records that only you have. And so we said there's a universe of people who have the same name and same birth year and died, but we don't have the records that you have. And one of the things that we have been suggesting formally and informally for weeks now is for you to make available to us the records that would be necessary to confirm.
But Cleta, even before you do that, and not even including that, that's why I hardly even included that number, although in one state we have a tremendous amount of dead people, so I don't know. I'm sure we do in Georgia, too. But is that we're so far ahead. We're so far ahead of these numbers. Even the phony ballots of known scammer. You know the internet? You know what was trending on the internet? Where's because they thought you'd be in jail. Where's
This is the election worker?
It's crazy. That was the minimum number is 18,000, but they think it's probably about 56,000. But the minimum number is 18,000 on the night.
Every time it's
back in there when everybody was gone.
Every time it's bleeped, it's her name.
Ballot boxes. Let's face it, Brad. I mean, they did it in slow motion replay, magnified, right? She stuffed the ballot boxes. They were stuffed like nobody's ever seen them stuffed before. So there's a term for it when it's a machine instead of a ballot box. But she stuffed the machine. She stuffed the ballot. Each ballot went 3 times. They were showing, here's ballot number 1. Here it is a second, third time. Next ballot. I mean, look, Brett, we have a new tape that we're going to release. It's devastating. And by the way, that one event is much more than the 11,000 votes that we're talking about. It's, that one event was a disaster. It just, but it was something that it can't be disputed. And again, we have a version that you haven't seen, but it's magnified. It's magnified, and you can see everything. And she put, for some reason, they put it in 3 times each ballot, and I don't know why, but why? I don't know why 3 times. Why not 5 times, right? But yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about the State Farm video, and I think it's extremely unfortunate that Rudy Giuliani or his people, they sliced and diced that video and took it out of context. So the next day we brought in WSB TV and we let them see the full run of tape. And what you'll see, the events that transpired are nowhere near what was projected by.
But where were the poll watchers, Brad? There were no poll watchers there. There were no Democrats or Republicans. There was no security there. It was late in the evening, early in the morning. And
this is
the
D.C. indictment.
Where were the poll watchers? And why did they say a water main broke, which they did, and which is reported in the newspapers? They said they left. They ran out because of a water main break, and there was no water main. There was nothing. There was no break. There was no water main break. But if you take out everything, where were the Republican poll watchers? Even where were the Democrat poll watchers? Because there were none. And then you say, well, they
this is listed in the D.C. indictment.
If you look at the tape, and this was reviewed by professional police and detectives and other people. When they left, in a rush. Everybody left in a rush because of the water main, but everybody left in a rush. These people left their station. When they came back, they didn't go to their station. They went to the apron wrapped around the table, under which were thousands and thousands of ballots in a box that was not an official or a sealed box. And then they took those and they went back to a different station. So if they would have come back, they would have walked to their station and they would have continued to work. But they couldn't do even that because that's illegal because they had no Republican poll watchers. And remember, her reputation is devastating. She's known all over the internet, Brett. She's known all over. I'm telling you, where?
Again, he's mentioning
the
the
hot items on the
election worker.
Where's? So, Brad, there can be no justification for that. And I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But that was, and Brad, why did they put the votes in 3 times? They put them in 3 times.
Mr. President, they did not put that. We did an audit of that, and we proved conclusively that they were not scanned 3 times.
Well, where was everybody else at that late time in the morning? Where was everybody? Where were the Republicans? Where were the security guards? Where were the people that were there just a little while before when everyone ran out of the room? How come we had no security in the room? Why did they run to the bottom of the table? Why did they run there and just open the skirt and rip out the votes? I mean, Brad, and they were sitting there, I think for 5 hours or something like that, the votes. But they just all happened to run back and go, Brad.
Yeah, Mr. President, we'll send you the link from WSB that does.
I don't care about a link. I don't need it. I have a much better link.
There we go. Page 15, DC indictment.
So is Alex. We've watched it. And what we saw and what we've confirmed in the timing is that they made everybody leave. We have sworn affidavits saying that. And then they began to process ballots. And our estimate is that there were roughly 18,000 ballots. We don't know that. If you know that.
There was 18,000 ballots, but they used each one 3 times.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know.
Well, I do, because we had ours magnified out. So each one magnified out is.
I've watched the entire thing.
But nobody can make a case for that, Brett. Nobody. I mean, look, you'd have to be a child to think anything other than that. Just a child. I mean, you never attorney there.
How many ballots, Mr. Secretary, are you saying that were processed in?
We had GPI thoroughly investigate that.
This is Ryan Germany. We had our law enforcement officers talk to everyone who was there after that event came to light. GBI was with them as well as FBI agents.
Well, there's no way they could. Then they're incompetent. They're either dishonest or incompetent. Okay, there's only 2 answers: dishonesty or incompetence. There's just no way. Look, there's no way. And on the other thing I said too, there's no way. I mean, there's no way that these things could have been. You have all these different people that voted, but they don't live in Georgia anymore. What was that number, Clay? That was a pretty good number too.
Yes. Well, the number who had registered out of state after they moved from Georgia. And so they had a date when they moved from Georgia. They registered to vote out of state, and then it's like 4,500. I don't have that right in front of me.
And then they came back in and they voted.
I think it was zoomed in. It's what they mean by magnified.
And the point is
going through each of those as well, and those numbers that we got that Ms. Mitchell was just saying, they're not accurate. Everyone we've been through are people that lived in Georgia, moved to a different state, but then moved back to Georgia legitimately. And in many cases...
Really? How many people do that? You mean they moved out and then they said, to hell with it, I'll move back in? It doesn't sound like a very normal... You mean they moved out, and what, they missed it so much that they wanted to move back in? Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and they moved back in years ago. This was not like something just before the election. So there's something about that data that is just not accurate.
Well, I don't know. All I know is that it is certified, and they moved out of Georgia, and they voted. It didn't say they moved back in, Clayton, did it?
No, but I mean, we're looking at the voter register. Again, if you have additional records, we've been asking for that. But you haven't shared any of that with us. You just keep saying you've
But
investigated.
Lita, a lot of it you
the
don't
allegations.
need to be shared. I mean, to be honest, they should share it. They should share it because you want to get to an honest election. I won this election by hundreds of thousands of votes. There's no way I lost Georgia. There's no way. We won by hundreds of thousands of votes. I'm just going by small numbers. When you add them up, they're many times the 11,000. But I won that state by hundreds of thousands of votes. Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
Oh, but have they moved? Have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure, Mr. President.
And what about the ballots? The shredding of the ballots. Have they been shredding ballots?
No. The only investigation that we have into that, they have not been shredding any ballots. There was an issue in Cobb County where they were doing normal, office shredding, getting rid of old stuff, and we investigated that. And this is stuff from, past elections.
No, I don't know.
And that's what
it doesn't pass the smell test, though, because we hear they're shredding thousands and thousands of ballots. And now what they're saying, we're just cleaning up the office. I don't think that plays.
Well, Mr. President, the problem you have with social media, people can say,
No, this isn't social media. This is Trump media. It's not social media. It's really not. It's not social media. I don't care about social media. I couldn't care less. Social media is big tech. Big tech is on your side, I don't even know why you have a side, because you should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, I know you don't. No, you don't. You don't have, not even close. You're off by hundreds of thousands of votes, and just on the small numbers, you're off on these numbers. And these numbers can't be judged. Well, why won't, okay, so you send us into Cobb County for signature verification, right? You send us into Cobb County, which we didn't want to go into, and you said it would be open to the public and we could have so we had our experts there. They weren't allowed into the room. But we didn't want Cobb County. We wanted Fulton County, and you wouldn't give it to us. Now, why aren't we doing signature, and why can't it be open to the public, and why can't we have professionals do it instead of rank amateurs that will never find anything and don't want to find anything? They don't want to find, they don't want to find anything. Someday you'll tell me the reason why, because I don't understand your reasoning, but someday you'll tell me the reason why. But why don't you want to find?
We chose Cobb County.
Why don't you want to find? What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so why did you do Cobb County? We didn't even we requested Fulton County, not Cobb County.
Well, Mr. President, we do have our election contest.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
We chose Cobb County because that was the only county where there's been any evidence submitted that the signature verification was not properly done.
Well, no, but I told you, but we're not saying that. We are we're the aggrieved party. Fulton County, look, Stacey, in my opinion, Stacey is as dishonest as they come. She has outplayed you at every heart, at everything. She got you to sign a totally unconstitutional agreement, which is a disastrous agreement. You can't check signatures. You can't do it. I can't imagine you're allowed to do harvesting, I guess, in that agreement. That agreement is a disaster for this country. But she got you somehow to sign that thing, and she's outsmarted you at every step. And I hate to imagine what's going to happen on Monday or Tuesday, but it's very scary to people, where the ballots flow in out of nowhere. It's very scary to people. That consent decree is a disaster. It's a disaster. A very good lawyer who examined it said they've never seen anything like it. And
Plus, the harvesting is still illegal in the state of Georgia, and that settlement agreement
agreement.
What's written on top of it?
Ryan? I don't have it in front of me, but it was not entered by the court. It's not a court order.
No, it's called, but Ryan, it's called the consent decree. Is that right on the paper? Is that right?
I don't believe so. But I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Whatever. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Look, here's the problem. We can go through signature verification, and we'll find hundreds of thousands of signatures if you let us do it. And the only way you can do it, as you know, is to go to the past. But you didn't do that in Cobb County. You just looked at one page compared to another. The only way you can do a signature verification is go from the one that signed it on November, whatever, recently, and compare it to 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, or even one. And you'll find that you have many different signatures. But in Fulton, where they dumped ballots, you will find that you have many that aren't even signed, and you have many that are forgeries. Okay? You know that. You know that. You have no doubt about that. And you will be at 11,779 within minutes, because Fulton County is totally corrupt, and so is she totally corrupt. And they're going around playing you and laughing at you behind your back, Brad. Whether you know it or not, they're laughing at you. And you've taken a state that's a Republican state, and you've made it almost impossible for a Republican to win because of cheating, because they cheated like nobody's ever cheated before. And I don't care how long it takes me. We're going to have other states coming forward pretty good. But I won't. This is never given. We have some incredible talent. They've never seen anything. Now, the problem is they need more time for the big numbers, but they are very substantial numbers. And I think you're going to find that they, by the way, a little information, I think you're going to find that they are shredding ballots because they have to get rid of the ballots because the ballots are unsigned. The ballots are corrupt. And they're brand new, and they don't have seals, and there's a whole thing with the ballots, but the ballots are corrupt. And you're going to find that they are, and which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them, because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. And
That language is also specific to the DC indictment.
To you and to Ryan, your lawyer, that's a big risk. But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country, because, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake, or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake, I don't know. A lot of people think it wasn't a mistake. It was much more criminal than that. But it's a big problem in Georgia, and it's not a problem that's going away. I mean, it's not a problem that's going away. And we got to...
President, this is Ryan. We're looking into every one of those things that you mentioned.
Okay, that's good. But if you find them, you got to say it, Ryan. Look, if they're... Let me ask you. Ryan, if they're destroying ballots...
Let me tell you what we are seeing.
Go ahead.
What we're seeing is not at all what you're describing. Okay. And these are investigators from our office. These are investigators from GBI, and they're looking and they're good, and that's not what they're seeing. And we'll keep looking. We'll keep looking at all these things.
Well, you better check on the ballots because they are shredding ballots, Brian. I'm just telling you, Ryan, they're shredding ballots, and you should look at that very carefully because that's so illegal. You may not even believe it because it's so bad, but they're shredding ballots because they think we're going to eventually get there, because we'll eventually get into Fulton. It's in my opinion, it's never too late. sound deck. So that's the story, folks. Look, we need only 11,000 votes. We have far more than that as it stands now. We'll have more and more. And do you have provisional ballots at all, Brad? Provisional ballots?
Provisional ballots are allowed, by state law.
Sure. But do you have them? I mean, are they counted or did you just hold them back because they, in other words, how many provisional ballots do you have in the state?
We'll get you that number.
Because most of them are made out to the name Trump, because these are people that were scammed when they came in, and we have thousands of people that have testified or that want to testify. When they came in, they were proudly going to vote on November 3rd, and they were told, I'm sorry, you've already been voted for, you've already voted. The women, men started screaming, no, I proudly voted till November 3rd. They said, I'm sorry, but you already been voted for, and you have a ballot. And these people are beside themselves. So they went out and they filled in a provisional ballot, putting the name Trump on it. And what about that batch of military ballots that came in? And even though I won the military by a lot, it was 100% Trump. 100% Biden. Do you know about that? A large group of ballots came in. I think it was to Fulton County, and they just happened to be 100% for Trump, for Biden, even though Trump won the military by a lot, a tremendous amount. But these ballots were 100% for Biden. And you know about that? A very substantial number came in, all for Biden. Does anybody know about it?
I know about it, but we were never.
Well, okay, Tlina, wait. I'm not asking you, Tlina, honestly. I'm asking Brad. Do you know about the military ballots that we have confirmed now? Do you know about the military ballots that came in that were 100%? 100% for Biden. Do you know about that?
And I don't know about that. I do know that we have, when military ballots come in, it's not just military. It's also military and overseas citizens. The military part of that does generally go Republican. The overseas citizen part of it generally goes very Democratic.
No, but this was yeah, that's okay. But I got like 78% in the military. These ballots were all for this. They didn't tell me overseas. Could be overseas too, but I get votes overseas too, Ryan. In all fairness. No, they came in, a large batch came in, and it was, quote, 100% for Biden. And that is criminal. That's criminal. Okay, that's another criminal. That's another of the many criminal events. Many criminal events here. I don't know. Look, Brad, I have to find 12,000 votes, and I have them times a lot, and therefore I won the state. That's before we go to the next step, which is in the process of right now, And I watched you this morning, and you said, well, there was no criminality, but I mean, all of this stuff is very dangerous stuff. When you talk about no criminality, I think it's very dangerous for you to say that. I just don't know why you don't want to have the votes counted as they are. Like even you, when you went and did that check, and I was surprised because, I didn't consider the check, and we found a few thousand votes that were against me. I was actually surprised because the way that check was done.
You are most welcome, Stephanie.
Recertifying existing votes. And, you were given votes and you just counted them up. And you still found 3,000 that were bad. That was sort of surprising. That came down to 3 or 5. I don't know. A lot. It was still a lot of votes. But you have to go back to check from past years with respect to signatures. And if you check with Fulton County, you'll have hundreds of thousands because they dumped ballots into Fulton County and the other county next to it. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. We have that in spades already, or we can keep it going. But that's not fair to the voters of Georgia because they're going to see what happened. And they're going to see what happened. I mean, I'll take on anybody you want with regard to and her lovely daughter.
That's the
Very
election
lovely
worker
young lady, I'm sure.
and her daughter.
I will take on anybody you want. And the minimum, there were 18,000 ballots, but they used them 3 times. So that's, a lot of votes. And that one event, and they were all to Biden, by the way. That's the other thing we didn't say. One thing I forgot to say, which was the most important. You know that every single ballot she did went to Biden. You know that, right? Do you know that, by the way, Brett? Every single ballot that she did through the machine at early in the morning went to Biden. Did you know that, Ryan?
That's not accurate, Mr. President.
Yes, the election worker.
The numbers that we are showing are accurate.
About early in the morning, Ryan, when the woman took when the whole gang took the stuff out of from under the table, right? Do you know who those ballots? Do you know who they were made out to? Do you know who they were voting for?
No, not specifically.
Did you ever check?
We did what I described to you earlier.
No. Did you ever check the ballots that were scammed by a known political operative balloteer? Did you ever check who those votes were for?
We've looked into that situation that you described.
No, they were 100% for Biden. 100%. There wasn't a Trump vote in the whole group. Why don't you want to find this, Ryan? What's wrong with you? I heard your lawyer is very difficult, actually, but I'm sure you're a good lawyer. You have a nice last name. But I'm just curious, why do you keep fighting this thing? It just doesn't make sense. We're way over the 17,779, right? We're way over that number. And if you took we're over that number by five or six times. When you multiply it out times 3, and every single ballot went to Biden, and you didn't know that, but now you know it. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this, and it's going to be very costly in many ways, and I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it, and you can re-examine it, but re-examine it with people that want to find answers, not people that don't want to find answers. For instance, I'm hearing Ryan, and he's probably, I'm sure, a great lawyer and everything, but he's making statements about those ballots that he doesn't know. But he's making them with he did make them with surety, but now I think he's less sure, because the answer is they all went to Biden. And that alone wins us the election by a lot.
Mr. President, you have people that submit information, and we have our people that submit information, and then it comes before the court, and the court then has to make a determination. We have to stand by our numbers. We believe our numbers are right.
Why do you say that, though? I don't know. I mean, sure, we can play this game with the courts. But why do you say that? First of all, they don't even assign us a judge. But why wouldn't you, hey, Brad, why wouldn't you want to check out, and why wouldn't you want to say, hey, if in fact President Trump is right about that, then he wins the state of Georgia. Just that one incident alone, without going through hundreds of thousands of drop ballots. You just say you stick by. I've been watching you for you don't care about anything. Your numbers are right, but your numbers aren't right. They're really wrong, and they're really wrong, Brad. And I know this phone call's going nowhere other than ultimately, look, ultimately I win. Okay, because
Mr. Secretary,
you guys are so wrong, and you've treated the population of Georgia so badly. Between you and your governor, who was down at 21, he was down 21 points, and like a schmuck, I endorsed him, and he got elected. But I will tell you, he's a disaster. And he'll never, I can't imagine, the people are so angry in Georgia, I can't imagine he's ever getting elected again, I'll tell you that much right now. But why wouldn't you want to find the right answer, Brad, instead of keep saying that the numbers are right? Because those numbers are so wrong.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. President, I mean, one of the things that we have been, Alex talked about this, we talked about it, and I don't know whether the information has been conveyed to your office, but I think what the President's saying that we've been trying to do is to say, look, the court is not acting on our petition. They haven't even assigned a judge. But the people of Georgia and the people of America have a right to know the answers. And you have data and records that we don't have access to. And you keep telling us and making public statements that you investigated this and, nothing to see here. But we don't know about that. All we know is what you tell us. What I don't understand is why it wouldn't be in everyone's best interest to try to get to the bottom, compare the numbers. If you say, because to try to be able to get to the truth, and that because we don't have any way of confirming what you're telling us. You tell us that you've had an investigation of the State Farm Arena. I don't have any report. I've never seen a report of investigation. I don't know what that is. I've been pretty involved in this, and I don't know. And that's just one of 25 categories. And it doesn't even, and as the President said, we haven't even gotten into the Dominion issue. That's not part of our case. It's not part of, we just didn't feel as
No, this is Cleto. She is setting up a
No, we do have a way, but
very distressing moment.
We found a way in other states later, excuse me, but we don't need it because we're only down 11,000 votes, so we don't even need it. I personally think they're corrupt as hell, but we don't need that because all we have to do, Clayton, is find 11,000 plus votes. So we don't need that. I'm not looking to shake up the whole world. We won Georgia easily. We won it by hundreds of thousands of votes. But if you go by basic, simple numbers, we won it easily. So we're not giving Dominion a pass on the record.
No, right, exactly.
But we just don't, we don't need Dominion because we have so many other votes that we don't need to prove it any more than we already have.
Mr. President, Cleta, this is Kurt Hilbert, if I might interject here for a moment. Ryan, I would like to suggest that just 4 categories that have already been mentioned by the President that have actually hard numbers of 24,149 votes that were counted illegally. That in and of itself is sufficient to change the result or replace.
Sorry, I missed that number.
4 categories that have already been mentioned by the President that have actually hard numbers of 24,149 votes that were counted illegally. That in and of itself is sufficient to change the result or place the outcome in doubt. We would like to just sit down with your office, and we can do it through purposes of compromise and settlement, just like this phone call, just to deal with that limited category of votes. And if you are able to establish that our numbers are not accurate, then fine. However, we believe that they are accurate. We've had now 3 to 4 separate experts look at these numbers. These numbers are based upon the USPS.
And certified accountants looked at them.
Correct. And this is just based on USPS data and your own Secretary of State data. So that's what we would entreat and ask you to do, to sit down with us in a compromise and settlement proceeding and actually go through the registered voter IDs and the registrations. And if you can convince us that 24,149 is inaccurate, then fine. But
Hold on a moment. He's asking to go through registered voter information. All right, let's just take a moment and acknowledge what he's asking for. He wants the records and the data of registered voter information in the state of Georgia. That is what he's asking for. Let's just be clear here. All right. Yes, this is not an opinion. He is asking, this Kurt fella is asking for registered voter data for the state of Georgia. That information is not available to anyone. That information is private to the state. That is the information he's asking for. Now, the next few minutes, things are going to get very dicey. I'm just giving you a heads up here. Okay?
I tend to believe that that is, obviously more than 11,779. That's sufficient to change the result entirely in and of itself. So what would you say to that, Mr. Germany?
Kurt, I'm happy to, I'll get with our lawyers and we'll set that up. That number is not accurate, and I think we can show you, for all the ones we've looked at, why it's not. And so if that would be helpful, I'm happy to get with our lawyers and set that up with you guys.
Well, let me ask you, Kurt. Kurt, you think that is an accurate number? That was based on the information given to you by the Secretary of State's Department, right?
That is correct. That information is the minimum, most conservative data based upon the USPS data and the Secretary of State's office data that has been made publicly available. We do not have the internal numbers from the Secretary of State, yet we have asked for it 6 times. I've sent a letter over to Mr. Anulowicz several times requesting this information, and it's been rebuffed every single time. So it stands to reason that if the information is not forthcoming, there's something to hide. That's the problem that we have.
Well, that's not the case. There are things that you guys are entitled to get, and there's things that under law we are not allowed to give out.
Well, you have to. Well, under law, you're not allowed to give faulty election results, okay? You're not allowed to do that, and that's what you've done. This is a faulty election result. And honestly, this should go very fast. You should meet tomorrow because you have a big election coming up, and because of what you've done to the president, the people of Georgia know that this was a scam. And because of what you've done to the president, a lot of people aren't going out to vote. And a lot of Republicans are going to vote negative because they hate what you did to the president. Okay? They hate it. And they're going to vote. And if you would be respected, if this thing could be straightened out before the election. You have a big election coming up on Tuesday. And therefore, I think that it really is important that you meet tomorrow and work out on these numbers. Because I know, Brad, that if you think we're right, I think you're going to say, and I'm not looking to blame anybody. I'm just saying that under new counts and under new views of the election results, we won the election. So it's very simple. We won the election. As the governor of major states and the surrounding states said, there is no way you lost Georgia. As the Georgia politicians say, there is no way you lost Georgia. Everyone knows I won it by hundreds of thousands of votes. But I'll tell you, it's going to have a big impact on Tuesday if you guys don't get this thing straightened out fast.
Well, Mr. President, this is Mark. Let me just, it sounds like we've got 2 different sides agreeing that we can.
Hold on. Let's turn the page because Mr. Meadows has a few things to say. Now, keep in mind, Mr. Meadows is asking on Monday for his case to be moved to federal court, stating that everything he did was because he was a federal employee. So let's take a look at what he has to say. Again, the state of Georgia is saying we cannot give you this information. That's illegal under our law. And they're saying we would like that information anyway. Upcoming elections on Tuesday, it would be a good idea for you to take care of this tomorrow.
Look at those areas, and I assume that we can do that within the next 24 to 48 hours to go ahead and get that reconciled so that we can look at the 2 claims and making sure that we get the access to the Secretary of State's data to either validate or invalidate the claims that have been made. Is that correct?
So that's not what I said. I'm happy to sit down with, or have our lawyers sit down with Kurt and the lawyers on that side and explain to him, hey, here's, based on what we've looked at so far, here's how we know this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
So what you're saying, Ryan, hold on, let me make sure. So what you're saying is you really don't want to give access to the data. You just want to make another case on why the lawsuit is wrong?
I don't think we can give access to data that's protected by law. But we can sit down with them and say,
But
hey,
you're
we're
allowed
looking
to
at
have
this
a phony
individual-
election? You're allowed to have a phony election, right?
No, sir.
When are you going to do the signature counts on when are you going to do signature verification on Fulton County? Which you said you were going to do, and now all of a sudden you're not doing it. When are you doing that?
We are
Mr.
going to do
President,
that. We've announced.
to get to this issue of the personal information and privacy issue, is it possible that the Secretary of State could deputize the lawyers for the president so that we could access that information, that private information, without you having any kind of violation?
Well,
Let's take a moment. This is what he just said. Is it possible for you to deputize the president's attorneys so they can have access to the data? Okay, let's just take a moment. Let's rewind and make sure that we understand what Mr. Meadows just asked.
so when are you going to do signature verification on Fulton County? Which you said you were going to do, and now all of a sudden you're not doing it. When are you doing that?
We are
Mr.
going to do
President,
that. We've announced.
to get to this issue of the personal information and privacy issue, is it possible that the Secretary of State could deputize the lawyers for the president so that we could access that information, that private information, without you having any kind of violation?
Well, I don't want to know who it is. You guys can do it very confidentially. You can sign a confidentiality agreement. That's okay. I don't need to know names.
All right,
But we got the information on this stuff that we're talking about. We got all that information from the Secretary of State.
Yeah, so let me.
Okay, so again, let's take a moment here and just acknowledge what just happened. All right, so I think this is important. Again, this is specifically language Mr. Meadows is stating on a phone call to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State's attorney, along with a few other attorneys that are involved in this situation. Now, the Secretary of State's attorney is saying the data we have, our registered voter data, is not allowed to be given to someone else because of how our law is written. Mr. Trump is saying, well, give us access. And he's saying, we cannot give you access. And then Mr. Meadows is saying, well, I tell you what, why don't you, as Secretary of State, deputize Mr. Trump's attorneys so that they could now legally have access to the voter registration data? At which point then Mr. Trump said, whoa, I don't need to know anything about that. You guys can do that on your own with confidentiality agreements. Just taking a moment here, okay? Let's just take this moment to recognize that. Yes. Now I will take you through the next explanation that's going on, but that is one of the biggest things that was said during this phone call. And of course, this can be given to the jury when we're talking about it. Yes. So we've got a way here that this particular person is asking for the Secretary of State to get around this law regarding voter registration access. So let's see what the final bits are here, and then I will do a Q&A after this, and we'll talk about it.
Let me recommend, Ryan, if you and Kurt will get together, when we get off of this phone call, if you could get together and work out a plan to address some of what we've got with your attorneys, where we can actually look at the data. For example, Mr. Secretary, I can tell you, you said there was only 2 dead people that would vote. I can promise you there are more than that, and that may be what your investigation shows, but I can promise you there are more than that. But at the same time, I think it's important that we go ahead and move expeditiously to try to do this and resolve it as quickly as we possibly can. And if that's the good next step, hopefully we can finish this phone call and go ahead and agree that the two of you will get together immediately.
Well, why don't my lawyers show you where you got the information? It'll show the Secretary of State, and you don't even have to look at any names. We don't want names. We don't care. But we got that information from you. And Stacey Abrams is laughing about, she's going around saying these guys are dumber than a rock. What she's done to this party is unbelievable, I tell you. And I only ran against her once, and that was with a guy named Brian Kemp, and I beat her. And if I didn't run, Brian wouldn't have had even a shot, either in the general or in the primary. He was dead as a doornail. He never thought he had a shot at either one of them. What a schmuck I was. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. I would like you to, for the attorneys on my side, I'd like you to perhaps meet with Ryan, ideally tomorrow, because I think we should come to a resolution of this before the election. Otherwise, you're gonna have people just not voting. They don't want to vote. They hate the state. They hate the governor, and they hate the Secretary of State. I will tell you that right now. And the only people that like you are people that will never vote for you. You know that, Brad, right? They like you. They like you. They can't believe what they found. They want more people like you. So look, can you get together tomorrow? And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple. And everyone's going to look very good if the truth comes out. It's okay. It takes a little while, but let the truth come out. And the real truth is I won by 400,000 votes, at least. That's the real truth. But we don't need 400,000 votes. We need less than 2,000 votes. And are you guys able to meet tomorrow, Ryan?
I'll get with Chris, the lawyer who's representing us in the case, and see when he can get together with Kurt.
All right.
Ryan will be in touch with the other attorney on this call, Mr. Meadows. Thank you, President Trump, for your time.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, everybody. That was a recording. You can find it on YouTube if you are interested, and it's by the Washington Post. They are the resource that has posted it. It's available for anyone. You can go through the entire phone call. It's really not that long. It's actually pretty, it goes pretty fast, but all of that information, again, is available all online for free, public access. And as I've been going through the phone call with everyone here, I've been pulling out the pieces of the DC indictment that brings up the exact points that he is talking about in his phone call, along with the different counts here, specifically the RICO charges. Bad Act number 116 is this phone call. And then number 28, count 28, is where they're asking the Secretary of State to violate his oath by a public officer. Those are the specific counts discussing this phone call. Now, there are other things included in the Georgia indictment, such as trying to influence a witness. We have the election worker who was mentioned multiple times. That's also listed within the DC indictment as well. Who recorded the phone call? I do not know. I do not have that information. I do not know who recorded it. I do know that it was given anonymously to the Washington Post, and they have set that phone call up. You think he's going to jail? Well, I mean, we're listening to the words that he is speaking. So this is the evidence. Again, this is just a piece of the evidence. We, of course, can go to the January 6th hearings and listen to witnesses testify, and I have gone through those. In my opinion, though, honestly, nothing is quite as clear as hearing it from him and actually saying those things. And Mr. Meadows saying, you've got 24 to 48 hours. We want access to the data of your registered voters. We want the Secretary of State. Can we deputize the president's attorneys? Now, you can ask questions, but if you're asking a question regarding an illegal activity, you can be charged with that. That is part of conspiracy. That is part of an attempt. This could easily be seen as an attempt, even though it didn't occur. The question itself, solicitation or attempt, those are our inchoate offenses. There's a lot. The Secretary of State recorded it. I can believe that. I can believe that. His attorney was also on the line. Again, this is information, right? The Secretary of State. This is information that this is the language he's actually using. I mean, there's no, I'm not making any of this up here. This was an actual phone call with him using his own words in this situation. Right. And because so many people were involved, that's how we get into the RICO questions out of Georgia. What witness will get the recording into trial? Great question. Something like this, of course, would be seen as hearsay, but there are exceptions to hearsay. And all you need is the person who was talking in that situation. Any of the statements made by any of the defendants are statements against your interest, so we see them as admissions. Meaning, if someone was brought into jail and interrogated, if they said any statements that were admissions against their own interest, those statements can be used against them in court. Even if they're not Mirandized, if they go to a pub later and they say to somebody, I did this crime, that information can be used against them. We would just bring that person in order to testify. Were you at the pub? Yes, I was. What did the defendant say? The defendant told me he did it. That kind of information is all admissible against a party's interest in criminal courts. Yeah, there's no grounds to indict Fannie whatsoever. There's some discussion about the Georgia law, and Hawk has done an amazing video on that. I highly recommend visiting his TikTok account if you want to find out what's going on with the Georgia law and the prosecutors there. He just posted a video, and it's fantastic, explaining how it works. Admission against a party isn't hearsay. Right, and it's not hearsay because the rule says it's not hearsay. Let me just show you the rule real quick. I know as soon as I get my rules out, everybody leaves, and I don't blame you one bit. But if you're looking for it, okay, let me just show you real quick. I'll just put it on the screen quick here, okay? Rule 801, subsection D, statements that are not hearsay, and then you bump down to subsection 2, an opposing party statement. There you go. Now I'll pull it back off the screen. But that's how we would get it in as evidence. Yes. Yes. Well, hello, Paralegal Life. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for the corn, as always. Appreciate that. What happens to the cases if he's reelected before conclusion? They continue to go on. You know, what a person's job is while they're going through criminal cases, you know, is irrelevant. He can continue to do his job or whatever, but he still will go through the process of a criminal trial. There's going to be a lot of legal paperwork that would be filed claiming he would be unable to fulfill his duties. And that is under the Constitution when it comes to the unavailability or impossibility of a president fulfilling his duties. Yes, we do mute misinformation, so just please take a moment. I'd appreciate that. We're just talking here. No need to be so upset. No, he can't pardon himself. Nope, none of that. Bubba G, be respectful, please. Okay, Bubba, thanks. Appreciate that. Yes, I do. I do mean Attorney Hawk. Yes, he, like I said, he's done an exceptional video explaining the Georgia statute. Exceptional. He did a great job. Highly recommend. Take a look at that. Can't pardon on a state crime. Also true. But even the DC situation, you know, at that federal level, no, pardon is not in the cards. Hockey is awesome. I agree completely. He is fantastic. Theoretically, he can only pardon himself federally, but that's never been tested. No, we've got a few things when it comes to pardons and with how the language is written in the Constitution. So you're not going to be able to pardon yourself for a conviction of a high crime or misdemeanor. Under color of law. Yeah, we've got a lot of issues. That's why the civil This section of the code is charged in the DC indictment, which is a conspiracy against rights. And this is what happens when a civil right, a constitutional right, has been violated. And that has been charged. Yep. Yeah, no, this is not a pardonable situation. This is just not it. And not only that, but of course, if he hypothetically were to get elected, then we've got grounds for impeachment immediately. So it might be cumbersome, but again, there's those kinds of grounds. How long will jury selection take? It'll take a while. Because, you know, they've got to be careful. They've got to be careful and make sure that everyone's going to be able to be fair and impartial. So it'll take some time, but it's doable. Attorney in Florida challenging the Fourth Amendment, Section 3 will probably go. Yes, and you know, Becky, you've really got your eye on that 14th Amendment, and I'm so thankful for that. So I really kind of looked to your comments to see where we're at with that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It's very controversial. We've got a lot of questions going on. You are welcome, LEZ. Absolutely. Blanket immunity. While he was in office. Yeah, our immunity doesn't quite work that way. U.S. v. Nixon, Clinton v. Jones, those are the cases talking about presidential immunity, and nope, it just doesn't work that way. Can they move this to federal court? The question on moving this to federal court is there is a federal statute that allows federal employees, when they are saying they're doing actions because of their job as federal employees, and were charged for those actions, they can ask for it to be moved to federal court. The key to this case is whether or not any of these people actually were doing something within the purview of their job as federal employees. That's the key. If that can be fine, and that's one of the issues in the evidentiary hearing that's going on Monday, if that can be fine, then they have an argument, but that's going to be a very high standard, difficult standard for them to meet. Mr. Meadows is going to have to come in and testify that him asking to deputize Trump's attorneys, as an example here, in order for them to get registered voter data from the Secretary of State when he's already been told multiple times he can't have it. How is that under his purview as his job? That's what he's going to have to look into when that evidentiary hearing comes in on Monday. What do you think they were doing? I think they were trying to figure out how to get over 11,000 votes. Now, my count may be off here, but it seems like that was asked about 50 times. Over and over and over again, he's asking for these votes. Again, I mean, there's just not even 5 minutes going by until he's asking for this 11,000 votes. I mean, that's very specific. We're not just having a conversation when you're saying the exact same thing over and over and over and over again, just repeatedly. And, you know, I mean, how many times is he going to say it? So we're not really talking again about just like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting? No, he's specifically saying it about 50 times, just repeatedly asking for a specific number of votes. Over 11,000 votes. And again, specifically setting it out just over and over and over again. And, you know, we all listened to it. We all heard the words. But when you write it down and you see how many times he specifically stated that number, you know, we're not, again, just kind of having a conversation. We're asking for a specific thing from the Secretary of State. That's pretty significant. Just enough fraud to win. I think that's an excellent way of putting that. Yeah, give me a break. Exactly. 11,780. Exactly. 20 times. True. But I also don't think I wrote it down every time. But still, 20 is a lot, isn't it? 20 is a lot. It's not 11,000, but it's a lot. It's a lot of times to ask that same question over and over and over again. And you can kind of go back in and listen to that. Can they remove Fan? I would say, again, pop on over to Hawk's TikTok. He's got an amazing setup. Let me write down his username for you so you know what I'm talking about. Most people are familiar with with Hawk, and so I didn't really write his name down, but let me put it down here for you. Like I said, he's just done an incredible video on this very thing, and it's so good. I had planned to put one together, but his is just so good. I don't think, honestly, I could top it. Let me give you his list here. Hopefully you'll be able to read my writing. Okay, hold on here. There we go. All right, here we go. I think if you just put in this first bit, you'll be able to find him. But here is his name. And like I said, he has done an amazing post on the Georgia law. And he goes private at night. Yeah, but he's also on West Coast time. So he's a couple hours behind us here in the Central Time Zone. But he's done such a great post. I mean, every single thing he's talking about in his post just sets it up, knocks it down, explains how it works, the history of it, why it's working, and so on. So I definitely would recommend taking a look at his video. It's just really good. It's just an incredible job. Yes, he also has a YouTube account. Yes, he does. Yeah, he's been posting quite a bit. He has. We we kind of have different purposes, I think, but overall, I think kind of educating is incredibly important. Oh, I think he's exceptional. He does fantastic work. Absolutely fantastic. You can move it closer to the camera. Oh, sure. Let's see. Here we go. Let me see if I can do it. If I can get it up a little bit better. Yeah, if you just put in MDG 650 Hawk, you'll find him. You'll be able to find him. Oh, yes. Yeah, he's fantastic. He does a great explanation. He just sets it out in a way that's easy to understand, I think. Let me move it over here a little bit. There we go. Are we there? There we go. To the right. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. There we go. I think we got it. Yep. Screenshot it. You bet. Too far, too close. Oh my goodness. Yes. No, he does great work. I think he gives very accurate information. He does a good job about it. So yes. Thank you, Real Life Works. Yes, that would be a good one to pin. Thank you very much. Yeah, he just does a great job. And he really ripped into that. When you're dissecting a piece of law, he really tore into the law and went through and explained how it worked, how it was set up, and so on. So I think he does great work. I highly recommend. I do try. Yes, I'm definitely, I walk down the middle of the road. That's not necessarily a road that everyone walks down. So I can appreciate all sides for sure. But I definitely try to walk down that middle road or off the road if possible. Oh, no problem. To the left, to the right. I know, right? Oh, goodness. Yes, we'll see. If you all ask him, he'll come and join me on a live sometime. Give him some peer pressure. I'm kidding. He's great. Yeah, the offer, of course, the door's open. And I don't always do that. I do try to be pretty careful when I go on my lives. So that would be great if he wanted to ever join me. But we'll see. Up to him. No pressure. Oh, listening from Australia. Welcome. Do you need to give consent to be recorded in Georgia? Ryan, I believe it's a one-party state, meaning only one person needs to know it's being recorded. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Gemex, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, I do just stick to the law, and that's my goal. Although I understand when others have other things that they wish to talk about and roads they want to go down. I've got no problem with that. It's just not my particular road. So Georgia is a single party state. Yeah. Oh, sure. You bet, Ryan. Great question. Greetings from Alabama. Yes, welcome. Will this post be looked at as tainting the jury pool? I wouldn't think so. Here's the deal with the jury pool. And I get some people have been asking me about that because I do go through indictments. I do go through the information. And, you know, the people that are interested in this information are already in a place where if we were to pull them into the jury box and ask them questions, you know, anything that they had heard or thought of when watching my live is not something that's going to be new just because of my live. So our juries just don't work that way. We're not looking for people that have never heard of anything. What we're looking for are people who can be fair and impartial. And, you know, if you are actively seeking out information on the case, you're already kind of in that category that we're going to be a little bit cautious about. And that just happens, and that's perfectly fine. But there are a lot of people in the jury pool, a lot of people out there that are available. We always find our jury, so I have no doubt that can happen. Federal wiretapping laws come into place. No, not in this particular kind of situation, although it's an interesting question. But no, I think if the USA Patriot Act was still in play, you know, there would be some even further openings of doors, but it's really not in play anymore, which, you know, I'm not mad about that. I think that was a good call. But no, I don't think we've got wiretapping issues here. Nope. Oh, Sarasota, Florida. Thank you. Welcome. Will they look into the background of potential jurors? Like how closely will they check them social? You know, Erica, great question. Here's the deal with any of our jurors in any of our states ever. If you have public information that the public can have, that can see, like if your media accounts are set up in a way that anyone can see your information, then anyone out of those prosecutor's office or defense counsel's office can look at that information too. So once your name gets tossed into the jury pool as a potential, you know, it's really up to the protocols of each individual office on how far they go into researching who's going to be coming in. So that's really based off of the procedures for each area. Do you think this will get moved to federal court? I don't know. I'm leaning towards a no, because I don't think we're within the scope of the purview of the jobs for the people that are involved here. I think that's what's going to keep us out of federal court, because federal court, they're saying, hey, I was a federal employee. I did something within the scope of my job and I was charged at the state level. And so that's what's going to need to be proven in order to move it. Could SCOTUS intervene? No. SCOTUS will come in if there's a constitutional law question. They are an appellate court when it comes to state criminal proceedings or even federal criminal proceedings. They are an appellate court. So they review if there's a constitutional law question. They're not going to just say, this is interesting and like pluck it out of a criminal court. That's really outside of their jurisdiction. There's also no real colorable defense in federal law. Agreed. Absolutely. Law of the wild. Excellent point. Excellent point. You got it. I mean, it's a fascinating case. And, you know, if you take the time to go and listen to that phone call, I mean, it's really quite amazing of how much information and evidence is used specifically for these indictments. And that's just one piece of evidence. That's not even, all of it. There's so much more. Why wasn't Cleta indicted? You know, if you think about it, if you think about the knowledge and information she had in her role on this phone call, and you think, why wasn't she indicted? There's probably a good reason for it. She has probably already spoken with whom she needs to speak to, and they have come to an understanding. You're welcome, Desert Skies. Of course, welcome. It's beyond insane asking to deputize his attorneys. It really is. It really is. And, you know, I think there are a lot of situations here where a lot of the executive people involved in this administration really kind of skirted a lot of the rules, and which I talked about regarding the Hatch Act, that a lot of them were listed as violating the Hatch Act, but there was no mechanism to hold them accountable. So because of that, they did things that were against federal law, but weren't held accountable because of how the law was written. So with that same kind of ideology, they're going around and kind of stepping around these different laws, but now there are accountability clauses in the law. And so now they're being, you know, held accountable and having to deal with that. So it's probably a bit shocking to them. Will SCOTUS intervene? No. SCOTUS is, again, it's an appellate court. Will only come in if there's a question of a constitutional law issue. Exactly. Yes. I mean, if you're going to plead, you want to set that up early so you can get the deals that you need to get. if you're going through it. Did you address double jeopardy? I've not, and I'm not sure. We don't have a double jeopardy issue if you're charged in a state court versus a federal court. The key with double jeopardy is the code section you're being charged with violating with the fact pattern. So the date and the time of each situation and the code section cannot be exactly the same. So if we were to charge the same exact offense with the federal code section repeatedly, now we've got double jeopardy. But if we're in a state and we're in a federal court, we don't have double jeopardy issues. All right, Buck Rogers, Nixon v. Fitzgerald. No, that's a 1980s case talking about presidential immunity. I would recommend you looking at Clinton v. Jones, which was a 90s case that supersedes that case. Impeachment isn't criminal, so no, it's not double jeopardy. Yeah, no, there's no double jeopardy with impeachment. Yeah, that's a different road. And especially, we don't have any convictions anyway for impeachment. Is anyone granted immunity for testimony? Probably. Probably would be. Perhaps, but I will be learning a lot, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. I think learning is the key here. Learning is the key. Yes, dual sovereignty. That's our federalism at work. Yes. State and federal charges. Exactly. He admitted he lost 4 times. Yeah. Well, that's fine. But, he asked for 11,000 votes. A lot. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's that there's no crime. Buck Rogers, that's just not true, sir. I'm going to need you to calm down. That's just not true. Oh, he's gone. I had $1 for every Nixon Fitzgerald comment I've seen lately. I know, Kimmy, right? We're going to have to start keeping a tally. Oh, Buck, now come on. We don't need that kind of language, do we? Come on. Can you talk about Giuliani's confession and how it's important to this call? I've not seen all of his confession, and there are so many people talking and confessing or making statements against their own interest. All of that is admissible in court. And one of the biggest pieces of evidence that our juries really appreciate are admissions. They do. They appreciate that. This case gets thrown to the Supreme Court. What's your argument for it to not? Please answer. Thanks. Hey, no, I'll answer. I've just get this question so much, and I answer it repeatedly. But here's the deal. The U.S. Supreme Court is an appellate court. So the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't just come in and take a case from a criminal court. There has to be an appealable constitutional issue. That's the only reason why they would get the case. All right. So they don't just get to swoop in and say, this is interesting, I'm going to take it over. They have to have a constitutional question that has to be determined. So in order for them to hear it, we have to have a constitutional law in question here. Yeah. Can he delay court by constantly firing attorneys? It seems ridiculous. He certainly could, Mandy. He certainly could. But ultimately, I mean, it doesn't, again, if he gets elected, impeachment could come into play. Lots of filing could come into play again. And they have to, all the secretaries of states or whomever it is that puts him on the ballot, all have to agree that he's qualified to go on the ballots as well. And that'll start with the Republican primaries. So it starts even at that level. But there's lots of things that can happen. Yeah, I haven't taken a look yet. They could potentially get a singular issue on interlocutory appeal. Correct. It has to be a constitutional question, though. It can't just be like, this, a constitutional question like was a motion for summary judgment denied, those kinds of things. Again, we've got to have the Constitution involved with it. It can't just be for fun. But you're correct. It could be an interlocutory appeal. But I don't think that's what most people are asking about. I think that they're asking, can the court just step in and say, let's stop all this nonsense? But you got it, Law of the Wild. You know what you're talking about. You got it. Yeah, the Supreme Court's for appeals. The Senate isn't set out to enforce the 14th Amendment. We have to have the proper mechanism in order for someone to come in with the 14th Amendment. So we have to have someone who feels that their 14th Amendment rights been violated and then sue the government and then bring it into the courts that way. You believe that it's a constitutional question. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. And I know that with all of this talk of First Amendment and Supremacy Clause, I know that they're banking on perhaps it being a constitutional question. But, when we're in court, in criminal court, it is up to the courts and a jury to determine that. So even if we have some kind of question, let's say there was a freedom of speech issue, hypothetically, and it went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, sure, that's fine. And they can say there was freedom of speech. It doesn't mean the entire case is done. It just means that freedom of speech element is taken out of the equation. But according to Article 3, criminal cases have to be tried to a jury. So the case would go on. Again, assuming somehow that freedom of speech would come into play, which, it's just, they would be overruling 200 years of case law in order to do that. So here we go. Let's just make sure we've got questions. When it comes to that, right, one Supreme Court, when it comes to the judicial power of the United States. And when we go further in here, cases, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in land or equity arising under the Constitution. And then you skip all the way down into all of these different pieces. And it says here, the trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, which go in front of the Senate, shall be by jury. And such trial shall be held in the state where the said crimes shall have been committed. So there you have it when we're talking about that. Right. Impeachment is an administrative removal. These are criminal charges, no double jeopardy. Perfectly said. That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. Right. That's a good point. What are you going to plead if you're ever called in and you're answering questions, that could incriminate you and could set you up for statements being used against you? You probably would plead the fifth. That's what it's for. Yes. Yes, exactly. It's an interesting study in that, but it's just not, I think there are a lot of these misunderstandings of the role of the Supreme Court and what they can actually do. And we're going to have to get into the case itself, past discovery, past all the plea agreements, past everything into the trial before any questions can be raised to SCOTUS, at all, if that's even possible. What happens with his Secret Service protection if he goes to jail? I think he would just need special accommodations, and that can be made. Sure. The smartest viewers. Oh, no, I do have the smartest viewers. Everyone's got such interesting questions. I love that. I love how people's minds work. It's very interesting to see, because I think of things and I think this is the only way, this is just what it is. And then other people ask me questions. I'm like, wow, I hadn't even thought that would be a question. So let's talk about it. I think it's fantastic. I love it. Oh, KJ, that's so sweet of you to say. Oh, thank you, James Cook. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do try to shed as much light on the situation as I possibly can for people. Oh, thank you, Ping Pong. I appreciate that. I'm so glad you could come by and visit. What's wrong with him being held accountable for his actions? Yeah, that's really it. If we've got proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury will find it. And that's the whole point of going to trial, is up to that. So Bush v. Gore ruined a generation. Yeah, I think many constitutional scholars would agree with you on that. Would absolutely agree with you on that. Yes, this is really up to the Secretary of State. We've got a huge issue here of sovereignty, right? Because we have a federal president of the United States. We've got federal actors here asking and going in to the trenches with the Secretary of State and asking that Secretary of State to toss aside their oath to their own state's constitution. And that's a huge question between federal power and state power. And, I think it's a valid moment in our history to acknowledge what's really going on here. Love your work. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Could the Secret Service have the authority to say he doesn't go to jail? No, Travis. No, he could not. No, they just don't. Their roles are not such. The only people that would decide if he goes to jail or not are the ones setting out the sentence. That mean the people of the U.S. that our rights were violated and sue for the 14th Amendment. We have a violation of rights being alleged here under count 4 in the DC indictment. This is where our rights are set out in a criminal structure. But a civil case under the 14th Amendment, we would not have standing to bring a lawsuit against Mr. Trump. We just wouldn't have standing. Our standing laws require a specific injury, in fact, causation, and then damages that can be redressed by the court. Those fundamental elements just wouldn't be met by any particular individual in order to sue. Let's be honest, they're not going to send a 78-year-old nonviolent felon to prison. Excellent point, Law of the Wild. The only thing that gets me, though, the only thing that trips me up is this mandatory 5-year minimum. That's the only thing that puts me into like I'm not sure what's going to happen here because this is, again, by law, mandatory minimum. How would the 14th Amendment be enacted? I've done a couple of posts on this because it is kind of complicated, but you know, what I encourage people to do when you're analyzing what can happen with the 14th Amendment is to look at it like who decides who's qualified to be president. If we look at the Constitution, they require you to be 35 years of age in order to run for president, right? We've got minimum requirements. So if someone were to go into the office, whatever office is needed, depending on your state, and say, I'm 35, I want to run for president, here are my documents, and the Secretary of State or whomever is in charge of putting them on the ballot says, actually, I have your birth certificate in my hand and you're 30 years old, you're not qualified, or I have your driving record, or I have your school record, whatever it is. This is your 30. So now you are disqualified to run for president. So those are the kinds of questions that we're asking. If we are disqualified under that section of the 14th Amendment, who enforces that disqualification? Because it starts right at the beginning. It doesn't start necessarily like we've got a section of the code that's being violated, let's charge someone. No, this is a qualification for someone who's wanting to be put on the ballot as a candidate for president. That's really the issue. Oops, sorry, I missed that pinned comment. Sorry about that. Wouldn't they just put him on house arrest? Again, it's a mandatory minimum 5 years if he's convicted under RICO in Georgia. Yeah, it's 5 to 20 years. And, you know, of course, they've got some room to move around. But with those mandatory minimum sentences, they have to do that kind of time. But if you think about it, many places have like, you know, good behavior that you can do. But when you've got a mandatory sentence like this, I don't think you even get credit for a good time, for time served. Why didn't SCOTUS just rule about speculative client that never resulted in damages? Right. So, great question. I'm assuming you're talking about 303 Creative. And the thing is, they did have standing because they articulated that Colorado had used that statute in the past to essentially penalize people. And she felt she would be penalized under that statute. Therefore, they found standing and proceeded on it. It also wasn't raised to SCOTUS. It was agreed upon at the lower courts. It was one of those things that both sides stipulated to. Routinely issues a sentence. They should stay it to avoid. Oh, that could be. They could. I'm wondering if they could stay it. That's a great question. Why is he not being charged for treason? His actions fit the qualifications and aid and comfort clearly. Okay. That's a great question. Something I've been researching. So let me just hold on. Let me get a document here to help explain that just real quick. Okay, so let's talk about that just for a minute here. Let's talk about why treason, sedition was not charged. Here's the law that sets out the requirements for treason, rebellion or insurrection, or seditious conspiracy. So it states here, whoever incites, set on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid and comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both, shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. This is the United States Code section regarding rebellion or insurrection. Here's the deal, though. When a prosecutor does an investigation, they do not have to charge all of the crimes that they believe have occurred. And if we look to the charges that were set out in the DC indictment, these are the code sections. We have conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct, and then conspiracy against rights. These are the only 4 code sections that were used. So this last code section wasn't cited. Now, when we ask our prosecutors to come in, it doesn't mean that this code section wasn't violated. It just means that the prosecutor's plan was to charge these 4 counts to start with. There are reasons for that, strategic reasons why a prosecutor would keep some charges kind of to the side or in your back pocket, so to speak, and not charge them right up front. You're not going to see a prosecutor that's going to charge every single thing they can possibly charge in a case as complicated as this case. What you will see are basically waves of different charges that will come through. Now, I don't know his specific strategy on everything, but I do know the elements of these particular violations of federal code are going to be much more straightforward and easily shown and proven to a jury than this more nebulous issue of rebellion and insurrection. It doesn't mean that this couldn't be charged. It just means that strategically it wasn't charged because these ones were better to take in front of a jury at the time. Okay? Does that make sense? If convicted of both federal and state crimes, which jurisdiction has him in jail? I think it's all about whoever gets there first. It's harder to prove. It's harder to prove this more nebulous kind of statute than more strict here. If you look at the pieces involved in obstructing an official proceeding, what you need is an official proceeding, which was the electors, and what we need is obstruction, which was interference. Those elements are pretty easy to prove into a jury, along with, again, this attempt element, which is an inchoate offense. The defrauding, we've got paperwork, we've got fake electors, so that's pretty easy to prove. And then a conspiracy against rights, well, there's multiple people involved, and the right is the right to vote based off of our electors. Each of these elements are so much easier and straightforward to show to a jury than showing, inciting, and so on that's needed for proving of rebellion or insurrection. So again, it doesn't mean this crime didn't occur. It just means that strategically you're putting in front of your jury the strongest cases that you can at the time based off of your process of going forward in a case this complicated. Right. Yeah, exactly. Strategery. That's exactly right. It is strategery. And again, I have no doubt that waves of cases of more counts could come in at a later time. And even after this is done, after we get whatever verdict we get, we could again go back through on any charges that could have occurred that have not run the statute of limitations and be charged later. This is Jack's case, yes. That's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about sedition. Who has the better case, New York or Georgia? I think they're both good, honestly. I mean, do we have proof again beyond reasonable doubt? I can't say that, but I can say New York, we've got some pretty clear records, pretty clear law. You know, did you do this? Yes. and it was fine that I did it, which I think is fantastic. You know, it's very interesting from a criminal point of view when you have criminals just admitting to things. But also in Georgia, we have all these admissions as well. I think Georgia's just much more complicated. So the penalties are more severe, but in New York, it may be easier to prove because there are less elements. So it's hard to know. Can they run the federal and state concurrently? They could. You know, it will depend on the situation. All jurisdictions will want their accountability. So if you are found guilty in a state, they're going to want their time. And if the federal courts are involved, they're going to want their time. So it's, you know, the practical application of how that goes about being done. It'll depend on the judges and the situation. I don't think it's a waste of breath to talk about legal issues and legal questions and so on. Other states planning to bring charges. Has anyone heard? I believe that they are. I believe other states will be bringing charges. But again, I think we're going to continue to see this happening in waves as people go. Not a waste at all. Thank you kindly. I appreciate that. Yes, I think so. I think it's interesting. Federal jurisdiction overrules states. Typically it does, but I mean, there are some cases like, let me give you an example. If I can remember correctly, the Oklahoma City situation, I walked carefully around this. We had state charges and we had federal charges. The state suffered the damage so significantly that although the federal charges were very important, they wanted to make sure that the states had that accountability in order to go after the situation that happened in their area. Is Nevada one of the states possibly bringing charges? They're involved in this, but they're kind of on the outside, the outer portion. They weren't as heavily involved as Wisconsin, as Pennsylvania, as Michigan. So they may step in, but they really were kind of pulled in towards the end of the entire process. But they would have grounds. They had the fake electors pulled into them as well. Oh, you're welcome, Nico. You're absolutely welcome. Here's where he moved. Right. There's a lot of good questions about that. Gore and Hillary both objected to their losses and claimed fraud. How are their crimes different? Courtney, that's a great question. You know, you can talk the talk. That's fine. But you can't pull in a group of people and tell them to go interrupt a, government proceeding because you disagree with how things happen. And you can't create fake documents and fake electors, under the Constitution. Also not allowed. You can't make phone calls to secretaries of states asking them to find votes. None of those things are legally allowable. So it's one thing for someone to say, hey, I lost, or, I was cheated. All of those things are fine. And Mr. Trump could have done that too. He could have absolutely have done that, or made his claims on the Twitter. He could have done all of those things. That would have been fine. But when you start bringing in people to disrupt a government proceeding, when you start interrupting the actual process of electors and creating fake electors, literally with documents and sending them in the mail to give to the president of the Senate and the archivist, now you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So that's the issue here. It's not that they're saying, whoa, he claimed that there was voter fraud. No, he can do that. He can absolutely say that. He can say the machines were bad. He can say the votes were bad. He can say all of those things. That's absolutely fine. But he cannot use that and then go forward and ask people to join him going to the Capitol, interrupting a proceeding that is, part of the process of voting in the United States. You can't do that. Do you think his immediate family will be charged also? It's possible, Shirley. There's an interesting report that came out on the Hatch Act and talking about how a couple of people very close to him violated the Hatch Act. But again, there was no mechanism to charge them. So there are a lot of people involved in a lot of different layers involved here. This is such a huge situation. It's absolutely possible for things to continue to keep rolling out. Oh, Jilly Bean, thank you so much. I do try. I mean, I understand that there's misunderstandings and, I completely understand. Sure, the Hatch Act. Yeah, the Hatch Act is a federal statute that was set out in I think it was in the 30s. I've forgotten the date now. I've gotten all my dates of all my statutes all mixed up, but I believe it was in the 30s. And the point of it was to say you're not allowed to use your position as a federal employee to go forth and campaign for a particular candidate, because it's kind of unfair endorsement because of your position as a federal employee. So you can't do that. So in the Hatch Act, you're not allowed to do that. And what the special counsel's office found was for the 2020 election that there were a ton of people under the guise of their positions, either changing the law to let them speak at the RNC, the Republican National Convention, or various other things, going on different shows and saying you should vote for President Trump, which was clearly a violation of the Hatch Act, but not enforced because of how the Hatch Act is written. You can say that a bank took your money. You cannot rob the bank. Yes, I think that's an excellent explanation. I think that's a very good explanation. 1939. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yes, I'm kind of getting my dates mixed up a little bit with my statutes. Yes. Thank you. 1939. Oh, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Appreciate. Okay. Excellent. Love that. Love that. There aren't many mechanisms to charge politicians at all, apparently. You know, you're correct. You are correct. We have great reasons to and great legislation saying, hey, we're trying to hold you accountable. But then we have things like, you know, Citizens United in front of the SCOTUS, and we have the Hatch Act with no mechanism for enforcement. I mean, we have a lot of situations where there's good intent, but the practical application is not as strong as it needs to be. Right. True. And Teresa, that's the exact definition of our inchoate offenses, again, where you don't actually have to be successful with what you're trying to do. If what you're trying to do is an illegal action and you conspire to do that and you do overt acts or significant steps in order to go forward and succeed with those illegal actions, then you can be charged with conspiracy, attempt, solicitation, all of those things. All of those things can be done. Are there any court documents regarding Giuliani's confession about the election workers? I haven't seen any yet, but I haven't really been digging for them either. This is fascinating to me, so I will definitely be taking a look at that. Do you think prosecutors are sharing info between cases? I do. And in fact, in Georgia in particular, we have the DA in Georgia who included in her response to Mr. Meadows' request to move it to federal court, she responded, and one of her exhibits was a report from the special counsel's office regarding the Hatch Act. And all of that information, that was attached to one of her responses, one of her replies. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. And typically we kind of stay in our own corners when it comes to state and federal. But there are some situations where it's like, hey, you know, we have the same goal here. We have a common goal, and we may need to share resources. So it is definitely possible. Feds and state working together. I know, Law of the Wild. I know. It's like the whole world has gone topsy-turvy. But in this particular case, you know, I think, you know, we're kind of in uncharted territory, and it's needed. You know, and you're not alone, Cobalt. I think there's a lot of trauma involved in this situation for a lot of people. I mean, there were 5 lives lost on January 6th. There were countless numbers of people who were charged. All of those lives are just left in, you know, shambles because of the situation. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Oh, I got you. I totally hear what you're saying, dude. I got you. If he does go to jail, which I don't think he will. Yeah, I think there would need to be special accommodations. No matter what, he would need special accommodations. Where can we get this particular indictment? This is the Georgia indictment. It is up online. You can go onto the Fulton County Court website and find it, or you can put in Georgia indictment Trump, and you will find the indictment. Lots of different sources, lots of different places. You can't be arrested for telling people that they stole it, but you can be arrested for asking people to show up at the bank and go into the bank and take your money back. you can. Who died? There were 5. We lost 5 lives. Yeah. It's a pretty, I mean, it's, again, that's, well, if you take a look, there was in the moment, but there were later repercussions that led to loss of life. So yeah, you got to take a look. Yeah, don't trust me on it, Alex. You don't have to trust my word at all. Go look it up for yourself and look at a reputable site. I would highly recommend that. Make sure you've got your sources that are good. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Law of the Wild. Yeah. There's just certain information that I personally am unable to kind of set out too much. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Yes, multiple sources, different viewpoints, corroborating evidence. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Go check it out. Yes. And we do have our election worker and her daughter who were approached, who were threatened. And we also have in Philadelphia, we have a couple of people there who were whose lives were threatened. So there's some pretty significant things. So yes, there was one person that day, but there were multiple people that passed due to what occurred that day. So, I mean, there are a lot of other things that were at play. So yeah, I think it's pretty significant. Thank you for your help. You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. Yeah. I mean, again, it was pretty significant moment in history. Pretty significant. Well, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I try, but I tell everyone again, and the other thing too is if I'm wrong, call me on it, at me, send me that video. If you think that what I've said is wrong and you have proof, please, I ask you to do that. If I'm wrong, call me out on it. Absolutely. And if it's true, if your source checks out, then I'll be the first person to say, you know what, I misspoke. I don't mind being wrong, but I need proof. And that's what I do request. I request actual, legitimate, trustworthy proof. And then I will absolutely acknowledge if I'm wrong. And I think everyone should. I think that's important. It's okay to be wrong. As too many people died, it's apparently trying to minimize. It seems that way. There really are a lot. I mean, and that's just, again, so many lives completely ruined. Has withheld charging the felony. Yes, I noticed that too, Miss Flintstone. Oh my gosh, I did. And it would be appropriate in that situation. It would be. I mean, hands down. I think it's an interesting thing. Statute relating to fraudulent conveyance. Could be. One life is too many. I agree. Let me just show you this real quick. This is online. You can look at this. It's really not that accurate of a picture because it's double-sided, but this is a list of all of the people who were charged with January 6th. There are so many people, so many lives here of people that went into the Capitol and broke the law. And we've got some people given years in prison, some people who are put on house arrest, and so on. But I have front back here, and again, you can go online and look this up yourself, but 65 pages of people arrested that day. So when you think about, yeah, we've got some lives lost here, but, all of these people made choices and, that resulted in some significant consequences. So if all of these people are being held accountable, and they're the ones that were actually doing the harm, I think the people that were involved in setting the situation up can also be held accountable. I don't see a problem with that. Elections every year. Yes, I agree. Yes. Oh, it's all public information. Absolutely. You can go online and you can look for January 6th indictments, but what you want to make sure is that you find the records of those who are found guilty and sentenced. And that'll take you to just pages and pages and pages of records of all of the people who were arrested and sentenced. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all public record. It's all public record. I did spend a live walking through the names. I did go through that, but that particular video was not something I really wanted to put up on my Two of You channel. I think that was kind of an important learning moment, but not something I wanted to spend too much more time on. But it's there. It's out there. Oh yeah, voting, that's the key. Uh-oh, is your screen black? Oh no. Can you hear me okay? You see the chat, but your screen is black. Oh, that's weird. I've got my screens going here. Where is your proof he told people to enter the Capitol building? Well, you know, that's not really how it works. I mean, he was charged with obstructing an official proceeding, and he was charged with defrauding the United States. These are what he's been charged with. Now, the people that he told to come to the Capitol, right? And, you know, for the Save America rally, which is a direct quote, that's these people. He told them to come. What they did, that was their choice. That's true. But they did it based off of what he asked them to do. And he literally said, let's go walk down the road. And that's what they did. So you can see his direct quotes on Twitter. Your screen is fine. Glad to hear that. Welcome, Rosie. Welcome. Good to see you, as always. Being charged doesn't equal guilty. That's correct. So when you're looking up who was charged with January 6th offenses, make sure you specifically put in charged and sentenced. So these people were all sentenced. Charged, found guilty, and sentenced. That's what you're looking for. That's the document I have here. He did try to go himself. Well, right. And, you know, peacefully isn't necessarily a word that was used at the time. And if you look at the transcript of what was said that day, peacefully was not used. And that's a point that's been made in court multiple times. Later on, there was some discussion via certain tweets, but yeah. And I wonder too, with all of these people that were charged, I mean, and convicted, you know, their lives are all affected too. And, you know, I'm not asking for any sympathy to be given, but because some of these people needed to go to prison. In particular, there was one person who was charged with the attempt assassination of one of our representatives. And he went to prison for a while based on that because he had that goal in mind and did substantial steps towards that goal. So all of those things, you know, that's important. DOJ is biased. Well, you'd have to show me some proof of that. Twitter deleted his text. Jack Smith excerpt his quote. You know, nothing has ever truly gone off of the internet, right? Right? So if it's out there, somebody downloaded it. Somebody's got a picture of it and can still be used. Can absolutely still be used. Yep. And there was subpoenas put out to Twitter. So all of that information is all still available. Yep. It is. It can be used. And again, you know, I'm just saying we had a situation where we had a lot of people who were charged. And what does indicted mean? It means that you have been found by probable cause to have committed a particular offense. That's what indicted means. Now, found guilty means you've been shown beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury or to a judge, depending on the situation, that you did actually commit the crime. You watched Hawk's video. Oh, good. I'm glad. Was it helpful? Did that clarify things for you a little bit? I thought it was really well done. Know the laws in your country. Absolutely. Very important. Very important. And I think, again, in that moment, a lot of people didn't really realize that they kind of became the villains in the story. And when that switches, it's kind of difficult, you know, to recognize that about yourself. And you can get caught up in the moment, but none of those are legitimate defenses or excuses. Yes, the Secret Service messages, those will be something very interesting that will be coming out. Yeah, and it was really informative. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear it. Yes, just want normal again. I get it. I get it. And I think this is really the beginning of the process of us starting to figure out, you know, how are we going to start healing from this? And we had the Republican debate. I had hoped, in my honest opinion, I had hoped that some language would come out that, you know, we need to kind of start the process, and it didn't. So we're just not there yet, but hopefully, again, this will be a bit of a road for us to go down, but we'll have to go. We'll have to walk down that. Yeah, Nikki, I think you're right. I think Nikki had some excellent points and some excellent words to say. I can absolutely respect that. But you know, we got to get there. Oh, you're welcome, Ruth. I'm hoping this is of some assistance in some way. First Amendment does not protect criminal conspiracy. Correct. Yeah, Rosie, I mean, I felt that way. I felt like, you know, we had an opportunity that could have been used a little bit differently, but you know, who knows? Maybe it was just the beginning, and we learn. Can Secret Service be summoned to testify? Yes, and they will be, is my understanding. They will be brought in, and they are required under oath to tell the truth. Secret Service is not like going into confession. You know, it's not, you don't have an attorney-client or a doctor-patient privilege. Secret Service doesn't work that way. They are a protective detail. They have their own kind of rules and code that they have to follow, and they also have ethics that they have to follow. So those things are all important. All important. No, I think I don't know. It's tough. Tucker Carlson's interview. Okay. I'll take a look at that. Sure. It's a lot of information. It's a lot. I'm not bored, but I find it fascinating. I think it's great to talk about it. Super disappointed. I think, you know, again, I'm not super involved in politics on anybody's side. That's just not, you know, that's not my bag. That's not where I'm at in my world. But, you know, I wanted to kind of hear what people had to say. And, you know, I think a few good points could have been made to try to kind of help us get through this process. But, well, I don't know. I think there were other goals. POTUS can extend executive privilege to Secret Service, though. That's an interesting debate, isn't it? I was thinking about doing a post about that. Smith retrieved all Secret Service deleted texts and emails. Yes, I think there's some very interesting bits that are going to come out. Have to be there by law. There should be privilege. True, but on the other hand, again, privilege when illegal actions are involved can be broken, no matter who you are, really, unless you're a religious person. Then your privilege is absolute, apparently. But well, you know, I don't know. Some people have said Tucker has kind of gone down a different road. I don't know anything about him, but I've heard that he's not quite as strict as he was before. So I don't know. I'm open. I'm open to people changing their perspectives. That's all right. An interesting interview. Fair enough. Sometimes, you know, you can really grab interesting interviews and interesting information from unusual places, for sure. Clean election, none of this would have happened. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing, is I think everyone was so carefully watching how this election went down that it was just like a really rude moment to be like, what? Wait a minute. Everybody did everything correctly. How did this happen? So, will Pence testify? Absolutely. I have no doubt. Has any Republicans here changed their stance? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I do know in my own world that there have been several who are, you know, I never ask what's your stance politically, but I do ask people, you know, do you have questions that you didn't have before? And, you know, can we talk about them? And without judgment, can we just talk about your questions and see if we can help you find some answers for both sides, for anybody? That's kind of how I view things. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Wisconsin we just didn't have that. situation, Courtney. That was proven false. That was false information that was given out. 14th Amendment, Section 3 disqualifier. Yes. I mean, that's how a lot of people are viewing that section of the Constitution, is that it's a disqualification, just like if you are not the proper age. That's going to be something that's going to be debated. I have put up a couple of posts on that if you're interested in better detail, better explanation. Pushed you way left. Well, fair enough. I think people are kind of doing you got to kind of go where you feel safe anymore. I think our safety has been taken away. Our sense of, we're going to be able to make it through. I think, some of those questions now are no longer safe because we have real, harm that has been done. So, I think that's important. Oh dear. I'm not sure about all that. I heard about a sandwich case about two shops next to each other. It was hilarious. Really? Okay. I hear a lot of sandwich questions these days. The more this goes on, the more we really find out about them. There are so many layers here, so much information that we didn't know. I think it's just really, it's a lot. It's so sad for our country. I agree. I mean, this is definitely historical. It is difficult. It is a sad time for everybody. I agree. Nobody wants this. Nobody wanted this to happen. Nobody wanted it. So now it's a matter of, owning up to mistakes and cleaning it up again. Some rights just seem obvious to me. Well, me too. I agree with that. I think there's certain rights that are, inalienable, but maybe I'm just silly with my ideologies. Has emergency procedures for the 14th Amendment issue during the election? Not yet. Not specifically set up. It's being debated, though. It's a huge issue. I have no doubt the justices are chatting about it, over their ham sandwiches. I've got no doubt that they're chit-chatting, but what they will come to as their understanding, I have no idea. At this point, I have no idea how they would go. Yeah, I agree. You just want someone who cares about our voice. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's more fundamentally harmful than actually putting people that are clearly not supposed to be there to vote for the real people that are supposed to vote? I mean, that's pretty significant. Tucker has been handed a list of questions. Okay. I think that's good to look into. Absolutely it is. Is there a challenge to Fulton County DA as to her not having the authority to bring this case? There was multiple challenges on the special jury that she called in, because if you look at the history of this case, this was the second jury that was brought in. Most people only get one grand jury, if they're lucky. They don't get a written indictment. But when you're looking at felonies, you're going to get one grand jury. She had pulled 2 grand juries in just to make sure she had everything sorted out. And that first grand jury, Mr. Trump had gone in and said that any of their reports should be dismissed and that she should be dismissed and the judge should be dismissed. All of that was overruled and dismissed. All of his objections were dismissed. So she's already kind of been in the thick of it already. Where can we watch Hawk's video? So this is his name. This is his TikTok name, and you can find him. And you can just kind of put this in as your search, and you'll be able to find him. But he's another great creator here on TikTok, and his information, I think, is very helpful. He definitely has picked a side, and which I, have no problem with whatsoever. I try to be much more neutral. But his information is so good. It's just on point when it comes to different issues with the law. So highly recommend for sure. Oh, absolutely. You bet. Of course. I feel like what happened will make us second guess everything now. I agree, Jezzy. I think we do. I think we realized that there were a lot of basic, back to basic information that we really need in order to keep going forward. We got to kind of restart our knowledge of how the Constitution works, of how our voting works, and all of those things. So I think it's important. Oh, he is awesome, Kim. You got it. He's great. He's great. He does such a good job. I'm very impressed. And I typically don't recommend any particular attorneys. I just find I've kind of been burned before when I've recommended attorneys, and some people will come back and be like, no, they weren't very good. So I'm making one exception for Hawk. He is my only exception of who I recommend. My only exception when it comes to recommending someone who's got great information. Have you heard of the false slate of electors voted on when Nixon was VP in 1960? I haven't. I've heard a lot of discussions about how this constitutional argument has been made regarding this idea of having a backup set of electors, but I haven't looked specifically into the elections themselves. Oh, Sydney filed for Speedy. Okay. Yeah, and again, I'm not too surprised. I mean, it really pushes the envelope. It could be another situation where they're kind of calling the bluff and saying, let's plead this out. But I've got no doubt that this DA is ready to go. She's ready to go. I've got no doubt about that. I know how they are from family members. It's hard to go against them once you cross them. Yeah. I meant, will SCOTUS hold a special emergency session if a state secretary doesn't let him on the ballot? Okay, I got you completely, Lawless. I'm a little bit slow sometimes on the uptake. I would say we got to get a case in front of a court, and our Supreme Court is our appellate court. So we have to get it into a jurisdiction, into court, before it can go anywhere near SCOTUS. If there's a question of a violation of a constitutional amendment, that's how it goes. But you have to have a lower court make a decision that SCOTUS can review and decide whether or not to affirm or dismiss or reverse. So that's how they get it. They've got to have jurisdiction through that way. You can't just pull cert in. You've got to have an appealable issue. Are you surprised none of the kids have been charged? Not really. I think they're really trying to, use a fine way of going about this. It's such a complicated case. And even in DC, you can see we've only got one defendant named, and that's by choice. I mean, that's a strategic play to make sure that the issues are very carefully focused. So these can get set up, knocked down, and go on to the next wave is really how I'm viewing it. That's my guess. If you weren't on the California ballot, work through all the courts during the election, time is of the essence. Time is a key piece here, but even again, and I've said it before, even if somehow he goes forward and does win, there are going to be huge questions of impeachment just right out the door, even when, after swearing in. So there are a lot of things that come before, during, and after. All of it will be completely tangled up in litigation for years, no matter what happens. Cheesebro, Powell, and Eastman want early trials. Why? It's a great strategic move. And the thing is, they're like, okay, let's rush. Let's get this done. Let's get it taken care of. But this DA and her team have been working on this for years. So they're ready. They're set. They're ready to go. Nobody likes to be rushed. But meanwhile, these guys have just received their indictment on the 14th. Now, maybe they've already been preparing in the background for how they're going to argue that this is a supremacy clause issue. Maybe. And maybe they'll keep trying to bump it to federal court. But even if they push Speedy, it really, honestly, it crunches the defendant's time, not really the prosecutor's time, other than having to kind of coordinate the technical aspects of getting all the witnesses to come in and so on. If they don't let him on the ballot. So he would have to sue the employee, the government person who didn't put him on the ballot. He would have to file a complaint. Then they would have to answer that complaint. Then it would be set. We would still have to go through a regular lawsuit, the process of starting a regular lawsuit before anything could get up to SCOTUS. So those kinds of things would have to be set out. The complaint gets filed. Then you have a certain number of months before the response needs to be. It's possible they could rush the timelines, but defense gets to respond to that, and then it gets to be set, and there's all the preliminary motions that have to be set out, all of this stuff. And then, depending on how the rulings are done on those motions, it's possible to pull a motion or a question like that up to SCOTUS. But again, you're talking a big chunk of time just to get the case going far enough for it to be asked to go up to SCOTUS. You can't just directly take a case to SCOTUS. Their jurisdiction doesn't really work that way. Selling his mugshot merch violating. Oh, that's a great question. Ooh, that's a great question. I may look into that. I'm not sure if Son of Sam requires a conviction, though. Does it require a conviction? I'm not sure. I really should look at that statute again. Wow, that question is fantastic. That's a great question. Because we've seen them hit before trial. Yeah, that's a good point. Ooh, I'm going to look into that. You can get a continuance even for a speedy. True. That's true. You got that. It's possible. And also they can go all the way up to like the day before speedy and then say, never mind, I waive it. So up until the actual date of trial, they can still waive speedy at any time. So that's how that right works. So again, it could definitely be a power play. It could be people trying to kind of mess around with the process, which it usually is in complicated cases like this. Right. So, Sure. So the Son of Sam Act is an act that was passed. Let me just pull up the date. I want to make sure I've got the date correct. Again, I'm kind of messing my dates up a little bit. My laws are getting messed up. Okay, so it was passed in, the mid-1970s. So basically, it's a law that was set out in order to prevent people who are charged with crimes from profiting by kind of selling their stories and making a profit from the crimes that they've done. So it prohibits that profit element when you've been charged with a crime. I'm just not sure if you have to be convicted or not. I'm not completely sure. It looks like we've got Supreme Court case 1991, Simon Schuster versus Crime Victims Board, where they held the law was unconstitutional, but autobiography of Malcolm X. So yeah, there's a lot of questions going on with that. I'll have to take a look into that. Is it a New York statute or federal? Now that I don't know. I know for sure it was in New York. I'm not sure if it went federal or not. But each state has kind of something similar to that, is my understanding. I know Massachusetts has a similar state statute. California does. Yeah, I'm just not sure if we have a federal. Let me double check on that. That's such a great question. Okay, 42 states and the federal government have enacted various kinds of Son of Sam. So yeah, we've got it state and federal, it looks like. It's a great statute. I think it raises a good point. It's just written out different. Oh, excellent. Thank you. 18 USC 3681, 3682. Excellent. Thank you for that. Yes, Cozy and Cray. Thank you for coming. I'm so thankful every time I see you. Have a wonderful, fantastic night. Appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. I don't think that's it. Okay. Well, I do know we do have it federally and multiple states. But the point is if you are charged and you become notorious for a particular criminal offense, you can't use that notoriety in order to make money, huge amounts of money, like biographies and so on. So, thank you so much, Cozy and Cray. Thank you. That is so kind. I appreciate that. Does he have to be convicted? Yeah, I'm not sure. About that. We'd have to take a look and see what the statute says. And again, we'd be dealing with the Atlanta statute, but we could also be looking at federal as well. So that's a great question. That's a really great question. It is ironic, I think. I think there's definitely some elements of irony involved in that situation. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's a valid question, isn't it? Valid question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a board that has to do a pardon in Georgia if he's convicted. And then, of course, at the federal level, we've got different issues. But I don't think it's, I think it's interesting people are asking about a pardon before we've even gone to trial yet. Like, are we, I mean, and it seems like people who are supportive of him are saying he'll be pardoned. But it's like, wait a minute. So if someone commits a crime and they're convicted of a crime by a jury, then it's okay to just pardon them. I mean, again, I think there's something odd about that particular analysis or that particular question. Isn't it better to ask, like, well, what happens if he's found guilty by a jury, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Like, that's the question, not like, oh, even if he's found guilty, he's going to be pardoned. Like, that just seems premature to me, in my opinion. Can you be pardoned at the charging stage? No, you can only be pardoned if you have a final decision. Anytime after conviction requires an order. Excellent. Good to know. That's a great question, though. I mean, it really is. It just seems like, well, why are we already talking about a pardon? I mean, doesn't it matter if there's a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt? Isn't that what's important? I mean, we can ask a question. Is it appropriate for someone to be going to prison? Is it appropriate for them to get the sentence that they get? But if they're found guilty, is it appropriate to just automatically say, well, there's just pardon them? I mean, we're already saying it's okay then to be wrong, to be guilty of crimes. That's okay. And to pardon them. It's just that concept, I think, for anyone is just not helpful. I mean, I don't think it's, and I don't care who it is. I don't think anyone who's charged with a crime and convicted automatically should be walking down the pardon road. But there's a lot of questions about that. A lot of questions about pardoning. The fix is in. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, why are people pardoned? Right? Why do people get pardoned? I mean, they're found guilty, and if you are lucky enough to get a pardon, what's your rationale? What's the reason for it? Yeah. Federal conviction rate, I'm not sure what it is. I think that's, it's just really distressing. I mean, are we talking about law and order, or what are we talking about here? I mean, there is like a reason from crooked convictions. So, but if you have are our juries then crooked? Is that what you're saying? We've got our justice system is completely crooked because of one man. I mean, should everyone get pardoned then? Should we pardon everyone? Should we let everyone out of the prisons? Were they all wrong? Were all of them wrong? I mean, where's the line? And why do people get to pick one person to make that decision? I'm just saying. I think those are good questions. Georgia system, perhaps. Won't work in Georgia. Yeah, there's a minimum requirement in Georgia. Okay. Yeah, I just don't. Well, I'm crooked. I'm not crooked. That's not very nice. Oh. All perfectly valid questions. Yeah, I mean, I think those are questions worth asking. I mean, I think if someone's to say, what's an appropriate sentence, what's an appropriate, accountability, I think that's valid. But to just go and toss it out already, it's like, what? Wait a minute. That's not how it works. 95%, 80% at trial. Okay. Good to know. Or political convictions. What? Political convictions? Are you crazy? Come on. Political convictions? We're not in Argentina here. Not that there's anything wrong with Argentina other than political convictions, I mean, that's not what we do here. I mean, we still have some basic fundamental things that are not quite jacked up yet. He gets elected. Could he do an executive order to get out of this? Wow, that's an interesting question. Whoa, my mind is blown with that question. Well, he can't. Could he do an executive order? Yikes. I'm not sure. Boy, Congress would be upset about that. Oh, that's tough. That one's a tough. A woman who bore children sent to a male prison. Yikes. Ooh. That's rough. That's rough. Wow, that's tough. It's political. Well, even if it's political, if you commit crimes, does it matter if it's political? I mean, does that matter? I think that's a good question, too. You commit a crime. You're charged with a crime. You commit a crime. You violate a law. Jury finds you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, does it matter if it's political? Of course it's political. He was trying to keep his position, right? That's a political position. All these people were in political positions. Like, yeah, there's politics involved, but I mean, there's still crime sections being charged, right? Needs to move to Canada. Supermajority to get rid of Willis. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure either. I think that statute is written in interesting. Definitely shouldn't be used for free political friends. Well, yeah. I mean, well stated, Snappy. Well stated. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, spitting facts here. I don't really know. What? I can't quite wrap my mind around it. 10-minute video on yes, on Georgia going after these. Exactly. Don't work. He's got it. Let me just give you his TikTok again. He did a fantastic job on that video. He really did. He did an exceptional job. Yeah. Ask Illinois how to jail a politician. Really? Okay, I might take a look at that. Will this be a jury trial? Yes. How likely is it to find 12 people to agree that he's guilty? We'll find out. And they may not find him guilty. I mean, that's the role of the jury. They're our fact finder. The trolls are here. Have the trolls come. No, trolls, no, please. We've been having such a great chat. Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah, he's first. I know, Snappy. I know. What are we going to do now that the trolls are here? Jury nullification? Yes. What about jury nullification? You'll have to be more specific. I get that question a lot. I predict a hung jury. Could be. It could absolutely happen. Absolutely. Post-it notes are awesome. Rami and Michelle. They did invent them, and I will not listen to anyone say otherwise. They get silenced and yeeted. Yeah, I tell you, my moderators. Oh, you work so hard. I'm so thankful. So thankful. It's okay to have differing opinions, but just be respectful. We don't need to spend our night fighting when we have to fight all day. So that's kind of how I look at it. How many more attorneys will quit before the trial? Great question. Valid question. Interesting. We could do like a March Madness brackets for that. The evidence is all here. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. And this, again, is only just what they need for probable cause. They didn't even present all the evidence for beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what the trial's for. Why do they want to get rid of Fani Willis? I don't understand. That's a good question. I think Hawk goes into pretty good explanation of why the statute was written and passed. Definitely recommend checking his video out. Yeah, he's got a great video on it. He really breaks it down really well. So, yeah, that's a rough go of it. It'll be, we'll see how it breaks down. Not sure. If you were called, would you take the case? Everyone deserves a defense, right? Yes, they all deserve a defense. And no, I would not take this case. There's not enough money in the entire world that would make me take this case. Literally not enough money in the entire world. No way. No, thank you. Oh, no way. Nope. Not for me. This is not for me. I don't mind going through and reviewing it, but if I had to stand up in court and try to argue these issues out, no, I don't think so. I'd take it, but I'd need to get paid up front. You wouldn't get paid anyway. Yeah, no, there's no. I am very, very lucky, I guess, or I planned my world out so that I could get to a point where I could be really picky about who my clients are, extremely picky, and I'm thankful for that. So, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Don't work. You have a great night too. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Public defender. I'm used to the impossible fights. Yes, and I did my time. I put my time in. Oh, not going again. Not going back into the trenches. No, thank you. Oh, goodness. Will it be televised? Yes, yes, it will be. I got called for a grand jury today. If the system is bad, as everyone says, do I have to do it? You know, Dakota, I would say the system has it as it has been. And in fact, is really better than it has ever been when it comes to equal protection and the process. I would say we get better and better because we screw up a lot and then we fix it. So, you know, I know a lot of people are frustrated with the process, but as one who's been watching it for a very long time, we have made leaps and bounds in our justice system. And if that makes it even worse, that I'm saying it's better than it's ever been, and this is what it is, I apologize, but, you know, that's just kind of true. Ivanka and Jared are laying low. Yes, yes, they are. They are, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Yeah, the client. Well, and, you know, that's tough. When you fight your client to get them to listen to you, oh my gosh. I mean, it's a lot of work. Bill Bondsman said his Collateral was the best bond he's ever written. Oh, really? Interesting. Isn't the history book you want your name in? No. You know, my name's plenty good enough. I'm done. You know, there's really, it's not as great as you think it's going to be. I think a lot of people in these cases feel like this is it. This is my moment. But, you know, that moment that everyone's going for, it's really not all that it's cracked up to be. And you'll come to look back at it and be like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Do you think Willis has a surprise for everyone? I know she is to turn over all discovery. I'm not sure it's a surprise, but I think she most certainly did not present everything in her indictment. And I think there's a ton of information that is not done that we will get to see. And I think that will be very interesting as that comes out. But I think we're going to really be in phases of this. It's going to kind of come like as time goes on, a little bit more. Even Monday, we should see some very interesting things coming out. He's not going to serve 1 day in prison if he gets convicted. Well, it's interesting. I mean, they do have mandatory minimums in Georgia. So this conviction carries with it that 5-year mandatory minimum. So I understand a lot of people feel that way, but I'm not sure how that law would be able to be challenged. Those mandatory minimums, we've been fighting against that for decades because they're so harsh. Oh, yeah. I hope I get on this jury. Well, it would be a time commitment. It would definitely be a time commitment for sure. Oh my goodness. Can he appeal it? Can he appeal the mandatory minimum? You know, we've been fighting it for so long. The ACLU is against it. The prosecutors across the United States, we have all been pretty much, almost all of us have been uniform in saying, you know, when you have a mandatory minimum, it takes away the individuality of the defendants. And when you just put a blanket over all of them and say, no matter what, you're looking at 5 years, when there can be special reasons why situations have occurred, it really takes out that individual level to it. So could he appeal it? I mean, he could try, but, you know, millions have tried before these mandatory minimums. Oh, of course. Oh my gosh. Hawk's amazing. He's fantastic. Absolutely. Never won on this jury. Yeah, I don't blame you for that. Yeah, Hawk's amazing. If anyone's got questions, you know, when it comes to Georgia in particular, but just overall, he's got great information out there. Absolutely great information. Going to perhaps, I'm not sure exactly what will happen. Oh, you're welcome, Rosie. Of course, anytime. I'm not sure exactly what will happen, but well, maybe Caffeine Cowboy, maybe there's a lot of things that will happen between now and the jury trial, though. So there will be a lot more information coming out. Who'd you expect witnesses to be? I think we're going to see a lot of the same people that went in front of Congress and testified. I think we're going to see a lot of similarities. Yes, Julie Bean, you're welcome. You have a great night. Oh, he lives near yourself. Oh, great. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Yeah, California. I'm super jealous. What do you think of him transferring his property? I'm not surprised. I don't think, I don't think the actual cash has changed hands, I think, but I'm not surprised. I think there could definitely be a reduction in value. A lot of things with his name on it have had some significant value reduction, so it may be smart to kind of transfer it around, I think, a little bit. I'd be on the jury. I'd like to see the facts. You'd miss your family. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there would be a lot of interesting evidence, but I think we'll be able to see a lot of it from the sidelines too. I'll bet he gets moved to federal court. Could be. It could be. I mean, if they find that they were acting within their official capacity, it could get moved to all indictments found run cons consecutively. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to run it, Becky. That's such a great question. I'm not sure. Usually whoever has the guilty first, then their sentences go, and they go in order of times that they're convicted. So that's usually how the structure is set up. But I really don't know how they're going to handle it. Again, I've not seen this many indictments in this many places, before. This is really legally unprecedented. And I've looked for, we've had some huge cases here, but to have all these separate issues all over the place like this, I really have no idea how they're going to do it. Oh, you're welcome, Mandy. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Appreciate that. If convicted, I wonder which jail. Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they move things around, because they, again, it's usually whoever goes first. So whatever order that happens. And if we've got, some speedy trials going on here, they of course would be set first, but I just don't know. Do you think any of the senators who participated will be charged? I do think they'll be charged. And I think that there will be some questions also about the 14th Amendment involving those senators as well. So I think there'll be a lot of that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about the buffering. That's a pain. That's a pain when that happens. He did because of future civil cases. That could very well be. And even the cases he's got going right now. I mean, he's already got so much in the works. I mean, he's looking at hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. How's he supposed to have security as a former president? How's that supposed to happen in prison? I think they will just have to make a special accommodation. They will have to make it, specific to him, because this has never been done before. So I don't think, they would force him to be in a situation like all the other prisoners. It's one thing to have equal justice. That's one thing. I get it. But there's another thing where you have to recognize we have a special individual. And if that individual goes into prison without any kind of accommodation, it would be unfair. It would be cruel and unusual to put him into general population in a prison. It just would not be appropriate. So they're going to have to find a way to make special accommodations for him. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely, Anne May. You bet. I am hoping to be helpful of some way in some small bit. It'd be nice to argue that. Yeah, I think that would be a good one. I think it'll even be settled by the election. No, Shanti. I think a lot of people are feeling rushed because of that. And I think there's a lot of media, there's a lot of talk that's making it feel rushed. But, in the legal system, we move slow. Everything moves slow. There is nothing that we are rushing towards. we take care of it. Even the speedy trial situation, it moves slow and it takes time. So it's not going to be resolved before the election. I know. Well, and that could be, Linda, that could be an accommodation that he might need. But I mean, there are going to be safety concerns. It would be curling his cellmate. Well, perhaps so. Oh, perhaps so, perhaps. He's a danger to national security, even in prison. That's an excellent point. That's a good point, Casey. Jail will calm him down. True. I mean, I think it does for anyone. It's a dicey situation, but again, I mean, accountability, that's important. Everything is important here, but we're also talking about a human being, and there are some things that will need to be put into place for that kind of safety. General Pop says, well, I don't know about that. Whoo. Oh my gosh. Yes, I think asking for speedy, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised one bit. I will be surprised if they don't all waive it as they get closer to the dates. I think this will definitely be a power play, and I think they're going to figure out that speedy is not in their best interest. Yes, no, was that a false rumor? I don't know. I've heard it too. That he transferred it to his number. This is for anyone who was wondering about the Georgia law. He did a really great video on the Georgia law that will come into place regarding the legislature in a committee to remove DAs. So that's why I've kind of been putting that up and back when people have been asking about that. So yeah, he just did a great video on it. Highly recommend. You can indict a ham sandwich. Well, I suppose. Oh my gosh, I just have felt the heat off of my phone, everyone. This is, I think, the time that I will need to start to say goodbye to everyone. Oh yeah, no, we love Hawk here. We absolutely love him. He does great work. He does absolutely great work. So, well, thank you all for joining me. I am going to go ahead and sign off at this time, everyone. But it's been a great conversation. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight and hanging out and asking great questions. Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate all the great questions and interesting things to think about. I'm very, very thankful for that. So have a fantastic night, everybody. Take care. I will be back up again. Normally I post on Mondays and Thursdays. Normally I come in on lives on Mondays and Thursdays, but if we've got something really interesting, I will see if I can bring those up a little bit beforehand. So we will see, but make sure if you've got questions, feel free to leave them on any of my posts, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So yes, I'm going to try to pop back on at some point over this weekend, but CNN, I don't know about all that, but I like my little corner of the internet here. I think it's just the right size for me, so this is just right. But yes, I will post this up on my Tube of You channel, which is under the same name for anyone who is interested. So thanks again, everyone, for coming, and my moderators, as all, wonderful. Thank you much for your time. Take care, everybody, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Have a great night.